Chapter 706. Why was it like this? Close to 10,000 people were trapped on the island. Everyone was dumbfounded, and then they felt a chill run down their spine. Their allied forces were actually going to be defeated. One demon Chu and the great demons of Kunlun were going to destroy the allied forces of close to 10,000 people. Who would believe this if word got out? The people on the Penglai island were terrified. This was the first time they felt regret. This enemy from Earth, the Chu Feng they had always wanted to kill, had actually grown to this stage? From their point of view, this was simply covering the sky with one hand. He was going to rely on his own strength to destroy everyone. Kill our way out. I don't believe he can trap all of us. Someone shouted, calling for everyone not to panic and to attack together to escape from this hopeless situation. Kill! The battle cries in this area shook the heavens. For a moment, everyone was using their secret treasures and activating their most powerful energy to attack the domain in an attempt to escape. However, the ground was as solid as divine gold. All kinds of divine patterns appeared and couldn't be broken. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky. Beams of light illuminated the firmament as the most violent energy poured down in torrents, bringing with it a destructive aura. Apparently, the domain on the ground was very terrifying as it absorbed a portion of the lightning energy once again. Ah, it hurts! The shout didn't come from the ground but from the sky. Demon Chu was howling and his hair was disheveled as he was submerged in the lightning. In just a split second, he had already suffered over 100 bolts of lightning, which struck him until his whole body was emitting green smoke. His body shook violently and swayed in midair as blood splattered in all directions. What a freak! Chu Feng cursed. This lightning tribulation was too terrifying and even more astonishing than what he had read in the book. This is just the beginning and there are already over 100 bolts of lightning attacking us. Could it be that he really wants to catch up to Yao Yao from ancient Earth? It's said that Princess Yao's lightning tribulation back then was boundlessly terrifying. Beside him, the old woman of the same realm was immediately angered upon hearing this. You still have the time to worry about his strength? We might all die here. Why aren't you joining hands to break this domain? Let them throw away their lives first and sacrifice this domain with their blood. The old man muttered as he looked at the evolvers from every direction. The densely packed figures were all glowing as they resisted. Boom! Some people exploded. The runes rising from the ground were too astonishing. The slightest touch was enough to turn some knights and their mounts into smithereens. No, I don't want to die, I want to live. Chu Feng, you're so vicious. Let me go. Kill our way out. Our only hope of survival is to break through the domains here. The island was in complete chaos. Close to 1,000 people had died after the domains were activated. This was simply a one-sided slaughter. All those who attacked the domain were heavily injured. The runes on the ground were extremely vigorous. There were all kinds of runes. Some were like sawteeth, while others were like divine chains. They blossomed just like that and killed everyone. It could be said that the rafter that stood out was the first to rot. Those who took the initiative to attack were like wheat being cut, falling in droves, and large amounts of blood flowed. Ah! Miserable screams rang out one after another as the evolvers from the starry skies fell one after another. Their corpses were everywhere, and of course, there were many who didn't even have their bones left as they directly exploded. Charge! Some people leaped into the sky, wishing they could immediately fly away. However, only a small portion of people could fly outside of Mount Eternal. Most people were suppressed and couldn't leave the ground. Unfortunately, the evolvers who charged into the sky were even more miserable. They exploded in midair like watermelons being smashed by giant rock. The scene of flesh and blood splattering in all directions made even the evolvers from various races, who were used to seeing life and death, feel their scalps go numb and they wanted to vomit. The domain runes in the sky were even more concentrated. Chu Feng, you're so ruthless, someone cried out loudly. Within such a short period of several dozen breaths, the people charging into the sky seemed to be opening a dye shop. All kinds of colors blossomed, and they were all the blood, bones, and organs in the human body. Chu Feng was also crying out in pain. He grimaced in pain as he was drowned in lightning and surrounded by it. His skin and flesh were lacerated, and even the smell of charred flesh wafted out. "This isn't scientific," he howled. Even at such a juncture, the evolvers from various races wanted to curse out loud. "Unscientific, your grandpa's ancestors. It's not scientific to have a monster like you living in this world. It's heresy." Chu Feng cried out. "Why? My lightning tribulation is tens of times more than others. There are so many thunderbolts, and the lightning is so concentrated. I'm going all out. I definitely won't die here." He realized that it was possible that everyone on the island would be annihilated this time, including himself. This was just the beginning, yet the lightning strikes were already so tyrannical. If this went on for a long time, he would most likely be struck into ashes. Fortunately, he secretly transmitted his voice to the Black Yak and the others. They steered the big rotten ship into Mount Eternal, and were no longer within the domain. On the ground, all the Saint children were overwhelmed with shock. After they raised their heads and saw Chu Feng's heavenly tribulation growing larger and larger, each and every one of them felt their scalps go numb. If it were them, they would have been struck to death. Strike him to death. After this demon dies, the domain might break. Who are you talking about? Even though Chu Feng was struck by lightning and his whole body was covered in lightning, he still heard this kind of delighted roar. He immediately widened his eyes and looked down. After that, he used his domain technique within the lightning and drew upon the mysterious magnetic chi. A certain area on the ground immediately boiled, and the magnetic force transformed into runes and rushed out. That evolver let out a blood-curdling scream along with his clansmen. They were surrounded by the domain runes and immediately fell into flames. Heavenly Fire Thunderclap. With such a domain name, one could see its might. Chu Feng, show mercy. We're all native evolvers and of the same bloodline and origin. This is a misunderstanding, let us out. At this moment, someone shouted loudly. He was anxious, frightened, and incomparably urgent as he waved his hand toward the sky. Chu Feng focused his gaze and found some familiar people. After that, his eyes lit up with killing intent. They were actually people from Penglai. This group of people was shameless to a certain level. People from Penglai, you still have the face to say we're of the same bloodline and origin? Die. Chu Feng, you can't be like this. We had some misunderstandings in the past, but from now on, we'll support you with all our strength. We'll follow you into battle and conquer the troops from the outer realms. The people from Penglai were anxious. If this continued, their bodies and souls would all be destroyed. Not a single one of them would survive, because the flames on the ground were rising and becoming more and more vigorous. Being human at this stage is also a kind of realm. Letting you guys out is a crime. You all deserve to be destroyed. Chu Feng's merciless words were transmitted over, causing the people from Penglai to despair. They were the weakest and couldn't compare to the evolvers from the outer realms. They had long since been unable to hold on, and now, they immediately cried out in pain and cursed in anger after hearing what was said. Chu Feng, you demon. You really deserve to die. You're destined to be annihilated by the heavens for attacking the native evolvers of Earth. You'll definitely die under the heavenly tribulation. You'll die from the 5 thunderbolts. You won't have a good death. The group of people from Penglai cursed viciously and cursed loudly from below. They had reached the final juncture and were about to die. There was nothing to be afraid of. They had all gone crazy. Then, following Chu Feng's focused attention on them, the area immediately erupted with the sound of thunder. Heavenly fire surged and formed from many tiny runes. Ah! The people from Penglai screamed miserably as they were drowned in the flames. One by one, they turned into torches and struggled with all their might. Unfortunately, these were energy flames guided by the domain runes, and they couldn't extinguish them. The people from Penglai suffered the baptism of the heavenly fire and thunder. They were in unbearable pain, and some couldn't bear it. They knelt on the ground and begged. There were also people who rushed into the air, but in the end they disintegrated and died even faster. Before long, the people from Penglai were completely annihilated. More than 200 evolvers died tragically here because they were too proactive. They mustered a large force and followed the evolvers from the outer realms to come here to kill Chu Feng. In the end, none of them survived. "Brother, are you alright?" shouted the big black yak and the others in the distance. They were somewhat worried as they stood in front of Mount Eternal's mountain gate. Lightning flashed and thunder roared in the area ahead. Chu Feng was undergoing an extremely terrifying heavenly tribulation. Meanwhile, the people below were shouting and horses neighing. It was a scene of chaos and the aura of death surged. Amidst the lightning and fire, the island had become an azurous field. Chu Feng opened his mouth and said, "I'm fine. Point out the weapons you like in advance. I'll do my best to keep them and pick up treasures later." "Alright, I want the deity race's god-murdering spear. It looks pretty good. The Shilin race's demon refining bottle is fine. I'll keep it to refine the Shilin race later on." Clearly, the Manchurian tiger and the old donkey were knowledgeable people. The most powerful weapons that they had set their eyes on weren't inferior to the green demon bow and arrows from before. These were the trump cards that the races had prepared: the brass pagoda, the god-murdering spear, the demon refining bottle, and the black gourd. "Alright." Chu Feng nodded amidst the lightning. Even though his hair was disheveled and his body was scorched black, his eyes were still brilliant as he stared down at those people. "Netherworld race's old fellow, put down my black gourd. Damning Pure Land's old witch, be careful. Don't damage my brass pagoda." When Chu Feng's voice reached them, the organizers of the allied forces, the veteran experts with trump cards, were so angry that they were about to collapse. All of them were unable to restrain their anger. What could they do? They had secret treasures and such powerful weapons in their hands, but now they couldn't harm Chu Feng at all. They were trapped by the domain. Boom! The sound of heavenly fire and thunder exploded in front of them. Great flames burned the sky, but of course, the most terrifying were those domain runes. Once they got tangled up, they would lose their lives. "Ah!" someone screamed. After being focused on by Chu Feng, the Netherworld race's old man with the black gourd went crazy. His whole body was covered in flames, and a divine chain formed from domain runes cut his body apart. He died tragically on the spot. Swoosh! Some densely packed sawtooth runes appeared and drowned the damning Pure Lands woman. Even if she used the brass pagoda to suppress them, it was futile. In the end, she turned into a pile of ashes. Clang! At the same time, the god-murdering spear fell to the ground. The deity race's veteran expert had died. Flames soared into the sky everywhere in the domain. The runes flickered and became increasingly terrifying. Even those who hadn't been focused on by Chu Feng couldn't bear it and were howling miserably. Before long, more than 6,000 of the nearly 10,000 people had died. Only a small half remained. To them, this was a devastating blow. The evolvers from every race were terrified. All of them were struggling to survive, but now they didn't have the chance. "Kill your way out, you damned evil creature!" At this moment, even the two golden arhats were anxious and incomparably irritable. They had tried to break out of the encirclement several times, but in the end they had all failed. They were in a sorry state and had already been injured. Scarlet spots dotted their bodies, and their battle clothes had been burned with flames. "Is everyone going to be annihilated here?" They were terrified. They raised their heads to look at Chu Feng in the lightning, feeling as though they were facing a peerless demon king. In the outer realms, it wasn't peaceful at all. That was because the veteran figures from every race and some golden arhats were waiting for news outside Earth. There were even saints here. The starry skies weren't calm either. Many people on the Origin Beast platform had already heard that the Allied forces from the outer realms were going to land on Mount Eternal today and wipe out the unfriendly evolvers on Earth. Oh, they'll be wiped out in one go. I think those so-called great demons of Kunlun on Earth will be wiped out completely. If Chu Feng is there, he'll be dead for sure. A woman from the spirit race chuckled. Her status wasn't low. She thought of her race's myriad star physique, Su Qingxian. He would most likely obtain a great fortune at Mount Eternal and become more and more dazzling from then on. Yes, Earth is done for. After this battle, the last batch of seeds will be annihilated. The recovery of this planet will only benefit the children of every race in the outer realms. Some saints were nodding. Mount Eternal was very special. It was covered in a strange mist and had an indescribable domain that concealed the mysteries of heaven. The saints from the outer realms couldn't see through it, nor could the heavenly eye. Chapter 707. Amidst the lightning, Chu Feng was like a withered tree. He was truly in a miserable state. His body and face were charred black, and lightning was spewing out of his mouth. As for the areas on the surface of his body where there were cracks, there were incessant crackling sounds of electricity. Normally, this should be a dead person. His body's vitality had been severely damaged, and it seemed like he wouldn't be able to survive. At this moment, the lightning in the sky had already come to an end and gradually disappeared. His dim eyes immediately lit up like a raging golden torch. He knew he had made it through. The heavenly tribulation this time was different from the past. Its power was too great, and it simply didn't give people a way out. He reckoned that under normal circumstances, even those at the transformation realm would die, their bodies and souls destroyed. Damn it! He raised his head to look at the firmament, and the first thing he said when he opened his mouth was to greet the heavenly tribulation. Such unfathomable lightning was pouring down in torrents. How could one live? Fortunately, everything had ended. Boom! However, just as he finished speaking, 5 different colored lightning bolts came crashing down from the firmament. They were thick and boundless, and they all struck his head like 5 pillars supporting the sky. Any one of the 5 colored lightning bolts could instantly kill a cloud eater, and it could easily kill a transformation realm person. In the end, they suddenly struck down at the same time. Bang! Chu Feng's body smashed into the heavenly fire thunderclap domain. His body stiffened on the spot, and black smoke came out of his head. He was like a black withered tree, motionless. Brother! At Mount Eternal's mountain gate, the black yak, the Manchurian tiger, and the others cried out in shock. Their hearts almost jumped out of their throats. They ran out like a swarm of bees, worried to the extreme. There were countless corpses in the heavenly fire thunderclap domain. There were also a lot of withered bones and large patches of human-shaped ashes. Many creatures were dead to the point where they couldn't be more dead. Of course, there were also some people who survived. This was what Chu Feng had intentionally done during his tribulation. He had left some captives. Chu Feng, you've actually died in the heavenly tribulation. You've really been struck by the 5-colored lightning. You've been struck by lightning from the heavens, haha. Someone laughed loudly. Especially in front of Chu Feng, there was a saint whose body was burned to the point of being riddled with holes. His body was shriveled and not much better than Chu Feng's. At this moment, he revealed a sinister smile and crawled forward on all fours. Chu Feng, you didn't expect it, did you? In the end, you would end up in such a miserable state. I will cut off your head. He sensed that Chu Feng's body was devoid of life and had completely become a rock-like corpse. Thus, he was very relieved and immediately pounced over to chop off his head. Sorry to disappoint you. Chu Feng sat up with a whoosh. He flipped his hand and slapped the man, causing him to explode into pieces. However, this saint child's body didn't spill any blood. It had all been burned dry by the heavenly fire thunder. He only let out a blood-curdling scream and died here. Chu Feng stood up and rapidly absorbed the energy nearby. Then, he looked at the sky full of gray mist again and said, "This young master still managed to survive. If you have the guts, why don't you try a sneak attack again? Come again?" His skull was almost cracked open and was still emitting black smoke. He slapped his skull with a smack to restore it to its original position. The saint children who hadn't died were all dumbfounded. They all felt that this was too freakish. How could he be fine with such heavy injuries? Crack! Suddenly, lightning appeared between heaven and earth again and struck toward Chu Feng. It was scarlet like blood and spherical. A string of ball-shaped lightning flew toward Chu Feng like a broken bracelet. "You're really coming?" Chu Feng jumped up and ran, rushing toward the sky. He raised his hand and threw all kinds of metal objects into the sky to attract the lightning. However, it was useless. Some of the ball-shaped lightning melted the metal weapons, while others dodged directly and dived toward Chu Feng. In the end, all of them exploded on his body and sent him flying. There was even a hole in his body which had been pierced through by the ball-shaped lightning. He fell to the ground and didn't move anymore. The world was silent for a long time. Everyone's expressions were stiff. In the end, Chu Feng moved. He crawled up shakily and looked toward the sky. His expression was one of conflict and bitterness. He really wanted to curse. "Brother, endure it. Don't open your mouth," the black yak shouted. He was truly worried for Chu Feng and was simply on edge. At this time, within the domain, the surviving hard currency, a portion of the saint children, all wore odd expressions. They wanted nothing more than to persuade him to continue cursing. They wanted to curse the heavens and the heavenly tribulation. Chu Feng waited for a moment and saw that the world was completely silent. There was no more lightning. Then, he decisively opened his mouth and said, $I and %. He really started cursing again because the evil heavenly tribulation made him angry. He felt that it was truly shameful and hateful. He couldn't help but want to curse. Boom. After that, he fell straight down. A beam of black light carried an indescribable aura as if it was dripping blood. There were order fragments within it that bombarded his body. "Ah, brother, you!" The Manchurian tiger and the others were frightened. While they were worried, they were also a bit disappointed that Chu Feng didn't meet their expectations. What was going on? Could they not be serious? Chu Feng was dizzy. This bolt of lightning had pierced through many of his bones. It was too ruthless, but in that instant, he also experienced many wonderful things. This was because the order fragments had entered his body and allowed him to touch upon such a terrifying and desperate situation. He directly broke through to the mid-Cloud Eater stage. After that, his wounds healed. He opened his mouth and inhaled. The remaining lightning flew into his mouth and nourished his body. He's eating the clouds and chi. He's eating lightning and lightning electricity. What a freak! Someone whispered. He was simply horrified. Chu Feng's body recovered a little. He jumped up with a thump and looked at the sky. He was conflicted for a long time. He really wasn't convinced and still wanted to curse. "Brother Chu Feng, stop cursing. I'm begging you, quickly stop," shouted the Manchurian tiger from afar. He was afraid that Chu Feng would be struck to death. "Brother, don't speak. Don't say anything. Silence is golden," shouted the black yak. Even the old donkey, yellow cattle, and the others were calling out to him, asking him to hold back. Chu Feng waited for a long time and realized that the gray fog had dispersed quite a bit. It was truly completely quiet. He was indeed a bit apprehensive, but he also had a curious mind. In the end, he couldn't hold back. He began to curse and rebuked, #yen#, that was because he was furious. Why was he struck so miserably? He had to be struck by lightning again after complaining a few times. If it was someone else, they would definitely be destroyed in body and soul. It's not coming? Chu Feng waited for a moment and saw that everything was calm. He immediately curled his lips and looked up at the sky with a cold smile. It's only SOSO. Strike again if you have the gut. Everyone was speechless. The heavenly tribulation had ended, so what was he still trying to do? Crack! However, a green bolt of lightning appeared and swayed down with runes. It exceeded everyone's expectations and blasted onto Chu Feng's body. You're really coming? This was Chu Feng's exasperated words. Wasn't it already over? Why did he provoke another bolt? All the bones in his body had fallen apart. He was so badly injured that he almost died. However, this time, he came into contact with more order fragments than before. They were contained in the lightning and entered his body. He quickly looked inside and carefully observed them. Following which, Chu Feng began to inhale madly and circulate his breathing technique to repair his injured body. In the end, he even fixed his own skeleton and stood up shakily. He began to use the lightning fist. Although he didn't activate his energy, his understanding of the fist intent became deeper and his attainments increased rapidly. It was as if he had practiced the fist for decades and didn't look like he had just come into contact with it recently. If people from the Yang realm saw this, they would definitely be shocked. This wasn't just the beginning, but rather, it was the true beginning to come into contact with the essence of this divine technique. This was once the supreme technique of a certain supreme imperial dynasty. One could still start with it in the beginning, but it would be incomparably difficult to study it in the future. Now, Chu Feng directly comprehended it during the tribulation. Inspiration burst forth from the order fragments in the lightning, and with irresistible force, he greatly improved the attainments of this fist technique in one go. He actually didn't die and was still practicing the fist technique? The saint children were indignant and cursed incessantly in their hearts. They felt that there was no justice in this world. Why wasn't this scourge dead yet? After Chu Feng digested these insights, he looked at the sky and said, Come, come, come. Old lightning, try striking me if you have the gut. Let's do it again. At this moment, not to mention the saint children, even Big Black Yak, Old Donkey, and the others felt that he was very despicable. It was already over, yet he was still looking for trouble and wanted to be struck by lightning. Even the Wudong Grandmaster, Wu Qifeng, was speechless and tongue-tied. Come on, old lightning, are your kidneys weak? Try striking me again if you have the guts. Chu Feng provoked as he stood on the island and challenged. At this moment, all the saint children and even the two evolvers at the Golden Arhat realm who were heavily injured but hadn't died wanted to say, This despicable demon, why can't the heavens open their eyes and just strike him to death? As if the prayers in their hearts had been heard, another bolt of lightning finally struck down from the sky. This was a bolt of black and white entangled lightning that resembled the energies of yin and yang. Bang! This time, Chu Feng was sent flying more than 800 meters away. Much of the flesh on his body was shaken off, and his bones were cracking. It was unknown how many of them were broken. This time, he didn't pretend to be dead. Instead, he howled and struggled to crawl up. He meditated where he was and began to swallow the energies of black and white to repair his injured body and quickly capture the order fragments that had entered his body. What kind of person was this? He didn't die even after this. What a pervert! The group of saint children who were burned cursed and shouted in their hearts that the heavens were unfair. This kind of person who continuously provoked the heavenly tribulation actually didn't die. Was there still justice in the heavens? Even the two experts at the Golden Arhat realm stared blankly at Chu Feng and were speechless for a long time. Boom! When Chu Feng set his bones and stood up shakily, he began to provoke again and spat out the 3-character sutra. This wasn't only because he was curious, but also because he had obtained real benefits. The order fragments hidden in the lightning were not only greatly beneficial to the improvement of his lightning fist divine technique, but they could also promote his overall cultivation and evolution. There were many wonderful uses. He felt that if he was struck a few more times, he might break through from the mid-Cloud Eater realm to the late stage. He wasn't satisfied with breaking through from the early stage to the mid-stage. However, it was useless no matter how eloquent he was and how he was foaming at the mouth this time. The heavenly tribulation didn't appear and the island was peaceful and tranquil. The 3-character sutra, the number 1 scripture in the world, isn't useful anymore. Old Lightning, you're such a coward. Chu Feng had a look of disdain on his face as he carried out the final provocation. However, no lightning fell from the beginning to the end, and no one paid attention to him. In the end, he had an unresigned look on his face as he stared longingly at the sky. However, he knew that it was completely over. This kind of attitude and appearance made all the saint children want to curse out loud. They really felt that it was too unfair in their hearts, and they didn't feel good. They really couldn't take it anymore. How despicable! Even Ouyang Feng curled his lip. He couldn't stand him anymore and looked at him in disdain from afar. In the outer realm, a group of saints, almighties, and experts at the Golden Arhat realm were all smiling at this moment. They felt that the curtains should fall on the great battle on Earth because news was about to arrive. Chapter 708. In the outer realm, a powerhouse twirled his beard and said with a smile, "Just wait for the good news. More than 9,000 evolvers from over 100 evolutionary sects will attack together. It won't be a problem to flatten this planet, let alone deal with a few small demons. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that demon, Chu Feng, is also at Mount Eternal. That way we'll be able to destroy all the remaining evils in one go." A saint nodded and said, "Yes, it seems that peerless physiques like the Myriad Star Physique and the Origin Magnetic Sacred Physique will rise from this recovering planet. They'll shine with invincible elegance and illuminate the entire starry sky. The fortune belongs to them." Eastern Sea, Eternal Island. The heavenly tribulation had ended, and the battle had come to an end. Chu Feng grimaced in pain. It was really painful. His mouth had been cheap just now, provoking the heavenly tribulation again and again. Now that things had calmed down, he felt like he was about to fall apart. In reality, he had almost been unable to endure. There were several large holes all over his body, all caused by the lightning strike. As for his bones, not only were most of them broken, but they were also charred black. The flesh on the surface of his body had dried up and cracked, and some mottled lumps had fallen off. He almost didn't look like a human anymore. It was precisely because of this that no one had discovered his true body even though it had been struck. That was because his tender face was charred black, and even his nose was still emitting smoke. Arcs of electricity would spurt out as he breathed. Only his eyes could still be considered bright. Everywhere else, including his earlobes, was charred black. His whole body had been baptized by lightning and the impact was very thorough. Chu Feng stood up shakily. He was speechless as he looked at his appearance. Not to mention a dead person, even a dried corpse that had been buried for hundreds of years was stronger than him. His whole body was charred black from head to toe. He looked down nervously and said, "Damn it, even the great Purring was almost roasted by the lightning." Not far away there were still saints who were still alive. There were even 2 saintesses who saw his furtive and nervous appearance. They were stunned at first, then came to a realization, and finally blushed. They all wanted to say, "Shameless. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a beauty before? Be careful not to get a needle's eye." Chu Feng berated them in a deadpan manner, but his face was actually slightly red. He hurriedly found his battle clothes and put on a righteous and stern posture. The 2 saintesses, Hashtag Yen Yen. The other saints were also speechless. They felt that Chu Feng was an atypical demon and a little despicable. Chu Feng no longer paid attention to them. He raised his head to look at the sky and said, "Lazy, have a safe journey. I won't send you off." Of course, he only spoke in a disdainful manner after confirming that the heavenly tribulation had completely subsided and would not appear again. That was because if he were to take another 2 bolts of lightning, he reckoned that he wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. He was already at his limit. The group of people were speechless after seeing this. At this moment, Yellow Cattle, Big Blackie, Wu Chifeng, Old Llama, and the others had already rushed over. They appeared outside the heavenly fire thunder field, and were extremely concerned. At first, they were very worried and anxiously asked if he was all right. But soon, their tone changed because they found that he was really fine. "It's not that Old Black wants to criticize you, but why are you so angry with Old Lay? What's wrong? It's almost a medium well steak, isn't it?" The Black Yak mocked him. Old Donkey also raised his long ears and bared his buckteeth as he said, "Brother, you must remember the words of our predecessors. The ancient donkey said it well. Those who pretend to be 13 will be struck by lightning and struck from head to toe. Hurry up and examine yourself to avoid leaving behind a lifelong disaster." Chu Feng wanted to beat him up after hearing this. A beam of fist light streaked across the sky and Old Donkey was immediately sent flying. This was Chu Feng's lightning fist after he had just broken through during the heavenly tribulation. Old Donkey's limbs immediately twitched and were charred black. He cried out in pain continuously. Chu Feng dragged his injured body out of the field and began to treat his injuries. Yellow Cattle and Zhou Quan carried the 3 most important captives over. They were the Myriad Star Physique, the Innocuous Divine Physique, and the Origin Magnetic Sacred Physique. The 3 great invincible physiques had been suppressed. The 3 of them were nailed by spears and had been pierced through several vital points. They were all crippled because these kinds of people would definitely erupt immediately if they were given the chance. They were incomparably dangerous. Among those present, only Chu Feng, Yellow Cattle, and Ouyang Toad could fight. The others were definitely not their match. Toad searched for the innocuous divine sun and grinned widely on the spot. He couldn't close his mouth and said, "Hiss, this guy has so many good things on him. He actually has the deity elixir. Where did he get it from? Didn't he call himself the Earth's True One?" With a whoosh, a group of people surrounded him. They pulled at the innocuous divine physique and picked up the treasures on his body. There were 4 drops of liquid in a sparkling and translucent crystal jar. They didn't merge with each other and shone brilliantly like 4 small suns. It was extremely divine. This was a special product of the deity race and had great uses. Consuming this liquid could eliminate disasters during successive breakthroughs. It was priceless. Even the deity race didn't have enough of this kind of divine elixir. Thus, they had never exported it and could only occasionally be auctioned in the universe's black market. The price was ridiculously high and difficult to accept. Zhou Quan cried out strangely. There are 3 six-path reincarnation pills. Where did this guy get them? Is there such a thing on Earth? One of them is worth 80 billion cosmic dollars. Then, he quickly poured out a pill from the bottle and gave it to the grimacing Chu Feng. "Continue searching." Chu Feng swallowed it while asking them to search carefully. At this moment, Zhou Shang woke up and his eyes were spitting fire. He was known as the innocuous divine physique, but now he had actually become a prisoner and was being searched. To him, this was a great humiliation. There was no such thing as failure in his life plan. He wanted to advance triumphantly and sweep away all the evolvers on Earth. He wanted to become the only creature that had obtained fortune. But now, he had been thoroughly defeated. With a clang, the old donkey gave him a black donkey hoof, smashing his head until it was as big as a bowl. Zhou Shang was in so much pain that he saw stars and almost fainted. That was because he didn't have a shred of energy to protect his body. Hee-haw, what are you staring at? Are you still not convinced? Grandpa Donkey will teach you how to be a donkey in no time. The old donkey lectured him. Donkey! Zhou Shang was so angry that his liver hurt after being hit on the head by a donkey spirit with long ears. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. The old donkey didn't say anything else. He raised his black donkey hoof, and with a clang, it directly slammed onto Zhou Shang's face. Zhou Shang immediately spat out blood from his nose and mouth as he cried out in pain. In a flash, his face swelled up like a steamed bun. This divine sword is not bad. It's a rare secret treasure. It can collide with Chu Feng's reincarnation blade without being damaged. It's a good item. Without a doubt, Zhou Shang did not have a good ending after falling into the hands of this group of great demons. He was robbed from head to toe. Spatial bracelets, protective armor, and in the end, he was only left with a pair of underpants. Even his metal combat boots were snatched away, and the toad put them on his feet. In the distance, the group of saint children and saintesses who were still alive were speechless. This group of people was simply the most savage of bandits. Myriad Star Physique, wake up. Do you have anything good on you? If not, I'll chop you up and feed you to the old turtles of the Eastern Sea. The black yak grinned and slapped his face. Su Qingxian woke up and found a middle-aged man with slicked back hair wearing sunglasses and a cigar in his mouth looking down at him. He was even slapping his face. He was immediately furious. Native, all of you scram. He was young and frivolous. He had been shrouded in a divine halo since he was young. He was only 17 or 18 years old now, so he was extremely arrogant and had a bad temper. With a clang, he was first kicked by the black yak, and his face was kicked out of shape. Then, he was kicked by the old donkey, and finally, he was picked up by the toad for a lesson. Little thief, what are you saying? Have you forgotten what divine King Ouyang taught you? At this moment, Ouyang Feng, who was covered in golden stripes, grinned from ear to ear. His saliva poured down and sprayed all over Su Qingxian's body. His entire face was wet as if he had been washed. Ah! The Myriad Star Physique cried out miserably. His heart and lungs were torn apart, and he began to vomit violently. The toad said disdainfully, "You're really disgusting. You're already a grown man, yet you're still vomiting everywhere. What kind of person are you? You extraterrestrials are really uncivilized." In the distance, the group of saint children and saintesses wanted to curse. You've already spat so much saliva, yet you still have the nerve to say that others are uncivilized? Who wouldn't be able to stop themselves from vomiting after being sprayed with dog's blood? What's with that look? Why are you looking at me like that? The toad noticed that the group of saint children and saintesses were looking at him strangely. He immediately stuck out his stomach and glared at them. All the saintesses were frightened out of their wits. They shut their mouths and didn't dare to say a word. What kind of liquid is this? It's sparkling and exceptionally holy. Zhou Quan found some things on Su Qingxian's body. One of the jars seemed to contain many stars. It was suffused with moonlight and sparkling starlight. It was simply too gorgeous and beautiful. Yellow Cow spoke with an astonished expression. This is star liquid, a type of strange substance nurtured in some special star cores. As expected of the Myriad Star Physique, to actually be able to find such a thing. Its value isn't inferior to the deity elixir or the hellish ant elixir. A single drop is worth tens of billions, and there are more than 10 drops here. Haha, I'm rich. The toad laughed heartily and gave the Myriad Star Physique a slap. He then sprayed saliva on his face and fainted from anger. You guys be careful. Don't kill him. It's best if you can force out all kinds of secret arts, Chu Feng reminded. After taking a 6-path reincarnation pill, his body crackled continuously. His flesh and blood were regenerating, and some of his old skin was cracking and about to fall off. He was transforming continuously. Gradually, his body was no longer charred and new jade-like skin could be seen. The effects were too obvious. Chu Feng's blood energy was growing and his energy was increasing. He was like a divine furnace of life, and the flames of his life were growing more and more vigorous. The aura he emitted terrified all the saint children. They felt as though they were facing a prehistoric demonic god. Boom! Moments later, Chu Feng had completely recovered. His back was facing the group of saint children, and his bones were crackling like beans being fried. When he turned around once again, his face was no longer immature and wasn't much different from an adult Chu Feng. "Ah, you two old fellows are really lucky to still be alive." Chu Feng didn't care about the saint children and saintesses. He was only slightly apprehensive of the two golden arhats. He walked forward and then went all out to activate the heavenly fire thunderous domain to kill. "Young man, let's talk things out. There's no enmity that can't be resolved in this world. We can sit down and talk about anything. It's nothing more than benefits." The old woman spoke and looked at Chu Feng. She wasn't confident because she was extremely weak now. If she were to be burned by the domain's heavenly flames, she would really die. "It's a pity that you don't even have the right to talk to me. You're not the holy son of a race, nor do you have a special physique. To your race, death is death. I probably won't get much ransom if I sell you. Besides, it's somewhat dangerous to leave you here. It's better to be on your way." Boom! Chu Feng activated the large-scale domain one step further and concentrated all the energy to refine them. All kinds of densely packed runes rose up and drowned the two of them. "Ah!" the two experts cried out miserably. In the end, they were burned alive by the heavenly flames. Their flesh dried up and they became skeletons. Chu Feng stood in the distance and released his flying sword to cut off their heads. In the end, he even used the reincarnation blade to finish them off. It was a pity that the two golden arhats didn't even have the chance to attack from beginning to end before they were killed. Their deaths were too unjust. The group of saint children and saintesses turned green. The death of two golden arhats caused them to lose all hope. There was no possibility of escape. Chu Feng said, "There are treasures everywhere. Take a look and see which one you like. Choose for yourselves." Old Donkey said, "There are so many weapons in front of us. Which one should we choose? What a headache." Sigh, the extraterrestrials are so passionate. They came to Earth from millions of miles away to deliver gifts and shed blood along the way. It's truly moving. The saint children wanted to kill, but they could only face it in silence. The toad looked proud and said, "There's nothing special about these goods gift. I don't want any of them. It's meaningless. I only want the innocuous divine physique to be my sparring partner. I'll kill him 18 times to sharpen my divine monarch body. Be careful, there might be a big fish hiding here," Yellow Cattle reminded. Chu Feng nodded and led the group into the domain. They began to pick up the treasures and were also finishing off the attack. The faces of all the saint children were pale and bloodless. That was because Chu Feng was truly iron-blooded and merciless after entering the domain. He picked up spears and halberds from the ground and pierced through their vitals, nailing them to the ground and letting their blood flow. The Black Yak and the others were finishing off the attacks and paralyzing their bodies. Even golden arhats would be crippled and lose all their combat strength if they were treated like this. At this moment, even the benevolent old Lama was solemnly chanting Buddhist mantras while attacking to cripple the group of saint children. At first, those saintesses still held on to some hope. In the end, they discovered that they weren't given preferential treatment. They were similarly nailed into the domain by spears and crippled. There really is a big fish. Chu Feng's fiery eyes saw everything clearly. Even if someone wanted to hide, they couldn't hide from him. He discovered a golden arhat evolver. He didn't say much. The reincarnation blade flashed and cut off this person's head. It rolled away and ended this expert's life. A total of 74 saint children and saintesses survived. However, these people were either crippled by the heavenly flames in the domain or crippled by Chu Feng and the others, losing their combat strength. All of them were bound tightly by spirit-binding cords or divine metal chains and reduced to prisoners. If it wasn't for Chu Feng intentionally controlling the domain during his tribulation, most of these people would have been burned to death. Chu Feng said, "This time, we'll cripple them completely and return them to their original forms. Then, we'll contact their clansmen to pay the ransom." The various resources obtained from selling the saint children last time, such as the six-path reincarnation pill, had been exhausted. Yellow Cattle, Ouyang Feng, and the group of great demons of Kunlun were surrounded and hunted down. They almost died several times, but fortunately they had the support of those pills. This time, they could sell off this group of saint children and saintesses in exchange for scriptures and great medicines. Over 9,000 evolvers had died here and left behind too many things. Although most of them had been reduced to ashes, there were also a fair number of items left behind. Things that couldn't be destroyed were naturally treasures. Among them, some materials could be smelted anew and forged into rare secret treasures. We've struck it rich. With so many rare weapons, we can refine their essences and forge some divine treasures. They picked up the treasures and piled them together to form a magical treasure mountain. There were all kinds of objects, all of them brilliant and gorgeous. Outside of Earth, a group of powerhouses and saints were waiting for news. This group of people was very steady and wore calm smiles on their faces. That was because it was impossible for an allied army with such a lineup to lose. Report. Someone rushed into outer space and reported to them. At this time, in the starry skies, evolvers from various sects were also waiting. They were paying attention to this matter through the Origin Beast platform and wanted to know the results of the battle as soon as possible. Outside of Earth, a powerhouse said with a faint smile, "Speak slowly, don't be anxious. Annihilation, annihilation." The evolver who had rushed into outer space was panting heavily. His head was drenched in sweat and he seemed to be extremely excited. That was because his body was trembling and even his lips were trembling. Chapter 709. Mu Qinghan was dressed in purple battle clothes. She was graceful and luxurious. Her beautiful hair was tied up high, and the golden ornament between her hair trembled. Her phoenix eyes were slanted, and there was a smile on her snow-white face. She was a saint from the spirit race, and was from the same generation as Yao Yao. She had fought Yao Yao on the heavenly vine and was almost killed. Yao Yao had suppressed her to the point of despair. But after so many years, she had already become a saint. She was incomparably hostile toward Yao Yao and the Earth's lineage. That was why the spirit race was very active in this operation. Naturally, there won't be any accidents. After this battle, this uncivilized planet will become the hunting ground for our descendants. A powerhouse from the deity race nodded. Although he was easygoing, his strength was unfathomable. Additionally, he came from one of the strongest races in the universe, so he had a certain dignity. Yes, this planet was once glorious. It was extremely powerful in ancient times. Now that it has recovered once again, it's just in time to help our descendants. From now on, this will be a place of refinement. Another saint spoke. There were saints from the Shilin clan, Damring Pure Land, and the Netherworld race here. The group of people with shocking strength stood in space above the earth and looked down. As for the large group of Golden Arhut-level evolvers, although they were also very powerful, they couldn't get a word in. They all stood quietly in the distance. The composition of Golden Arhut-level evolvers was complicated. Some came from powerful ancient sects, some from imperial dynasties, and some were space pirates and interstellar explorers. Now it was finally time to divide up the benefit. Everyone's eyes were sparkling with brilliance. "It's not like this." The informant trembled and gasped for breath. He thought he had said it clearly enough, but in the end, he realized that even the saints had misunderstood him. At the same time, he was terrified. After the truth was revealed, the saints wouldn't be able to keep their faces. Would they slap him until he exploded and turned him into a pool of blood? At this moment, not only was his body trembling, but even his soul was throbbing. He was almost paralyzed there. "What's going on?" A saint spoke and frowned at him. He had a bad feeling because the informant's eyes were filled with fear and even despair. "Reporting to the saints, something big has happened on the planet below." This person's body trembled and a layer of white sweat appeared on his body. He braced himself and said, "The Allied forces have been completely annihilated." For a moment, the surroundings were silent. Everyone stopped talking, and even their heartbeats stopped. One powerful evolver after another froze in place, and there was absolute silence. It was too quiet. There was a deathly silence in outer space. Everyone was petrified and motionless. The female sage of the spirit race, Mu Qinhan, originally had a warm smile on her face. But now, her face instantly stiffened. Her elegant temperament vanished, replaced by a cold aura. Her pupils contracted, and her bright red lips gradually turned purple. Her attitude of having everything under control disappeared in an instant, and all that was left was a murderous aura. At the same time, she felt humiliated in her heart, and even a sense of shame and resentment. Everything she had said was within her expectations, and it was actually reflected in this way. At this moment, she felt as if she had been slapped on the face, a burning pain. The Almighty of the deity race was also in a daze at this moment. His figure was completely fixed in place like a clay sculpture. The saints of the damning Pure Land, the Machine race, the Shilin clan, the Great Qi dynasty, and the Netherworld race were all stunned. Just now, they were already discussing how to divide the benefits of Earth, and how to equally divide those ruins and famous mountains and rivers. But now, it was as if everyone had been slapped in the face. Just now, they were all calm and certain that they would achieve a great victory in this battle. They would annihilate all the thorns on Earth who dared to go against the will of the various races in the Starry Sea. From then on, this planet would become a colony. Who would have thought that it would actually be such an outcome? It was indeed a complete annihilation, but it wasn't the aboriginals of this savage planet who were destroyed. Instead, it was those thorns who went against the heavens and annihilated the allied forces of various races. "Impossible!" cried a golden Arhut cosmic pirate. He was extremely fierce, and a ruthless glint flickered in his eyes. That was because his own grandson had led a group of pirates into Earth. He couldn't accept this outcome. Some interstellar explorers were also panting heavily. How could it be such an outcome? Nearly 10,000 evolvers attacked, and a great army pressed down on the border. Even if everyone on this planet resisted together, it wouldn't be enough. How could they be defeated and completely annihilated? The space outside of Earth was in an uproar. Even the powerful beings at the Golden Arhut level were agitated. They questioned the outcome of this battle and simply couldn't believe it. Before this, they had thought of all kinds of possibilities. Perhaps some of those evolvers on Earth had escaped, and they might not necessarily be completely annihilated. However, they had never thought that the allied forces of various races would be defeated and completely annihilated. "Shut up," said a quasi-saint. He maintained order on behalf of the powerhouses present and manifested his dignity. At this moment, the saints of various races had sunken expressions. In a flash, an extremely terrifying aura pervaded the air. Everyone in the vicinity quieted down and shivered. After the saints were enraged, the space outside of Earth trembled and a rumbling sound erupted. All kinds of vague order runes appeared and suppressed the entire world. Thump! A large number of people knelt down. From the cosmic pirates to some dark hunters, as long as they hadn't reached the quasi-saint level, their bodies were weak and trembling under the holy might. They were boundlessly terrified. In a split second, this news spread to the Starry Sea and was reported on by some platforms. Very soon, the outcome of this battle seemed to have grown wings and flew to all parts of the universe. Evolvers on many vital planets heard it, and even more detailed information was sent to the desks of many powerful characters. Over 9,000 evolvers and close to 100 evolutionary sects had actually suffered a crushing defeat and were swallowed up by the natives of Earth, who were thought to have declined. Not a single person had escaped. Only a portion of the spies hadn't entered Eternal Island at that time. They saw this scene from a distance in the dense fog of the Eastern Sea. It made their bodies go cold and their blood almost solidified. The great demon King Chu Feng had reappeared on Earth. All of this had been done by him. The news spread like a thunderclap, causing the ears of evolvers from various races to ring. Recently, there were rumors that Chu Feng had left Earth and entered the Starry Sea. There were even rumors that he was the one who had caused the incident in the Shilin clan's universe's black prison. In the end, he had returned to Earth and wiped out the heroes. Ah! Demon King Chu Feng, I'm going to peel off your scalp, pour in mermaid fat, and light you up as a sky lantern. Someone was screaming and howling with disheveled hair. Trash! Close to 10,000 troops couldn't even take down a group of little demons. Moreover, they were scared witless by a single demon King Chu. The whole army was defeated. What face do they have? Let them all die. Sir, almost all of them have died. Almost no one survived. Ah, is my grandson also dead? I'm in so much pain. I'm going to kill Chu Feng and those natives. The starry skies were in chaos because the impact of this matter was too great. Too many sects were involved, and the leaders were the favorites of some of the elders of various races. In addition, even if they weren't saint children, they were the direct descendants of space pirates and the children of explorers. When had they ever suffered such a great loss? Some old demons were going crazy. As for the deity race, Shilin clan, Damring Pure Land, and the others, it was as though a storm was coming. The Yin energy within their clans was heavy, and the atmosphere was almost suffocating. They couldn't accept this kind of battle situation. One had to know that this time was different from the past. They had mustered a large force and called on all races to work together to conquer the savage planets. In the end, the Allied forces were completely annihilated. This made their faces burn with pain. This slap to the face was too resounding. They knew that many people were watching them make a fool of themselves. The 10 greats weren't that harmonious. The deity race and the netherworld race had suffered a terrible setback this time. They clearly realized that they had been seriously challenged. Their own power and influence might decline. They had suffered a great loss at Chu Feng's hands more than once. Their divine sons had been killed earlier, and today, they had suffered such a great defeat. Over 9,000 of them had been wiped out by one person with a domain. This made their hearts ache to the extreme, and they wanted to go crazy with hatred. The latest report from the quasi-saint race's permanent correspondent on Earth, Ing Chiahong. The Allied forces have been routed, and the halberd has been broken at Mount Eternal. The Earth evolver named Chu Feng has swept everyone with a domain. The latest news from the Buddhist race. The saints of the Allied forces in outer space are furious, causing many golden body evolvers to be affected. Some of them have fallen. News from the Black Blood Arena's live broadcast platform. The Myriad Star Physique, the Innocuous Divine Physique, and the Origin Magnetic Physique have been captured alive by Chu Feng. The 3 great physiques have all been defeated by one person. The universe's starry skies were completely boiling. The news of this battle couldn't be covered up even if they wanted to. That was because the deity race and the netherworld race weren't the only ones paying attention to this battle. Neutral evolutionary sects were also reporting in succession. In particular, the quasi-saint race and the Buddhist race were actually reporting the details of this battle. The Origin Beast platform and the Black Blood Arena were peeling the beans in detail. All sorts of details were revealed. Perilous waves rose and fell between all the major galaxies. Countless evolvers were dumbstruck. Those who understood the details were speechless for a long time before clamoring again in the end. By now, Demon King Chu's savagery could be said to be known by everyone. Such a great commotion shocked everyone's jaws off. At the same time, many people felt their bodies go cold. In just half a day, a large ship sailed out of the misty region in the ocean outside of Mount Eternal. Chu Feng and a group of great demons were sitting on it. They had actually appeared in such an ostentatious manner and made a speech. They calmly faced all the evolvers in the starry skies and especially allowed the intelligence collectors stationed on Earth to interview them. Chu Feng expressed that he was responsible for this matter. Motherf ****. The related enemies all wanted to beat him to death after hearing this. He still dared to come out and act like a big-tailed wolf after causing such a terrifying incident. It was simply too shameful and hateful. I'm here with a heavy heart to mourn the victims. Chu Feng's tone was solemn. He was actually giving a speech, and everyone's jaws dropped. Many people wanted to say, "What the hell are you grieving for? Weren't you the one who killed them all?" One must know how to cherish life. How can one disregard one's own life and abandon it at will? Chu Feng said solemnly. He didn't have stage fright when facing the camera and was very calm. He said in a sincere and earnest manner, "You only have one life. You can't start over again. I advise everyone to take this as a warning." The people from all races were thrown into disorder. What was this demon talking about? What was he trying to do by putting on such a posture here? Was he mourning the dead and warning the future generations? However, they soon discovered that this demon wasn't doing it out of good intentions. His speech changed very quickly. Chu Feng said, "We're here in deep remembrance. The dead are gone, and the living should take this as a warning. Everyone, please cherish this. You should strive to improve yourself in life and have self-respect. Don't come here to deliver food because you're too weak." He was seriously slapping them in the face. This kind of serious attitude and saying such words made the powerhouses from the outer realms grind their teeth in hatred. They really wanted to slap him to death. Alright, the mourning is over. Let's return to the main topic. I'll be holding a charity banquet and auction 3 days from now. Of course, considering that everyone is separated by many galaxies and the journey is long, 90% of people can't make it here. Therefore, everyone can also use the interstellar network to bid. The proceeds from the auction will be used to help the native evolvers of Mount Eternal. Therefore, I hope everyone will come and support Earth when the time comes. Yes, if the deity race, Shilin clan, Damning Pure Land, Netherworld race, and so on need special invitations, I can quickly refine a few for you. Don't worry. This kind of golden invitation won't be voided as easily as the one from Damning Pure Land. I solemnly promise that it will be effective for life. My auction welcomes you to bid and purchase at any time. I guarantee that it will be closely related to you. These words made the evolvers from all races dumbfounded. They all knew that he was definitely going to do something big. As for the deity race, Damning Pure Land, Shilin clan, and so on, each and every one of them felt as if their faces had been slapped swollen. They were all shocked and angry at the same time. Oh right, I forgot to introduce the auction items this time. Apart from our store's specialty products, saint children and saintesses, there are also all kinds of secret treasures piled up like mountains. In addition, we have another auction item for the finale. We're currently trying to strip out the rare bloodlines of the myriad star physique, innocuous divine physique, and origin magnetic sacred physique. If we succeed, we'll definitely sell it. Many people in the starry skies were shocked. The bloodlines of the three great invincible physiques were going to be sold, yet he could strip them out? Not to mention ordinary evolvers, even some powerhouses and the ancestors of the most top-notch orthodoxies couldn't sit still. They were in an uproar. Chapter 710. Who knew how many evolvers were discussing among the major galaxies? The commotion on Earth was shocking and had drawn the attention of the world. Especially this time, there was a possibility of selling the bloodline of divine and saint physique. This was simply earth-shattering and made the ancient experts of the major orthodoxies unable to sit still. This demon, he's starting to sell people again, someone sighed. Everyone was speechless. The word again in such words really made people's minds run wild. But this was indeed the truth. The deity race's close allies stood out and rebuked Chu Feng. This demon is going against the grain. Humans and gods are indignant, and the heavens cannot tolerate it. We should suppress him together. Many people laughed at him in front of his face. Then, they directly inquired about Chu Feng on Earth behind his back. They wanted to ask if he could really separate the divine and saint physique's unrivaled bloodline. If he could transplant the source, they would bid for it with their lives on the line. For a moment, the starry skies were in chaos. The most powerful evolvers and the people in charge of the major orthodoxies couldn't sit still because the level involved was extremely high. Human traffickers, bandits, and terrifying villains. This is an undisguised kidnapping, extortion, and extortion. It's too despicable and shameless. The parties involved were all very anxious. They accused Chu Feng of all kinds of crimes, saying that he was notorious for his misdeeds, hypocritical, and cunning. His crimes were too numerous to be listed. Someone advised, "Old friend, calm down. Hurry up and prepare the ransom. Save your granddaughter first, and then we'll talk. Yes, prepare all kinds of scriptures and great medicines. I reckon the six-path reincarnation pill and deity elixir will be in high demand." Not everyone condemned Chu Feng. There were also people who expressed approval. For instance, a notorious old demon stood out to support him and said, "Haha, as expected of Demon King Chu. He actually committed such a big crime. His methods are above the standard. As expected of someone from the demonic path. Oh, we're not alone. Those who come after us will do good." However, he was soon unable to laugh, because his disciple's grand disciple reported in a low voice, "Ancestral Master, your granddaughter has also gone to Earth. I just took a peek at the auction list, and it seems that junior sister Saintess's name is on it." The old fiendish demon's expression changed on the spot and he said, "Umitba, this is infuriating. Damn it, this little devil Chu Feng dares to sell my granddaughter? This old man will fight you to the death. Patriarch, please calm down. This devil doesn't recognize anyone. Have you forgotten that Zi Luan, Zhao Qing, and Yuan Mo were captured? They have old devil Zi, old devil Zhao, and Yuan Mo behind them, so they have to pay protection fees. They're being extorted. You'd better think of a way to prepare some great medicine or scriptures. Otherwise, don't let your rivals get in the way and buy junior sister. You're infuriating this old man." The old monster was infuriated. Discussions were going on everywhere. The parties involved were furious, but there was nothing they could do. The Origin Beast platform was very lively. Countless people were discussing this matter, and many people were speechless when this matter was brought up. Turning human trafficking and extortion into a charity banquet. It's so fresh and refined. This is really Chu Feng. That's right, it's in line with his style of doing things. He's too shameless. But this devil's methods are indeed powerful. He's even willing to sell the myriad star physique and innocuous divine physique. Who wouldn't be moved? If the divine source transplant is successful, then he'll have the potential to be invincible in the future. Forget it, they can't be invincible. The myriad star physique, innocuous divine physique, and origin magnetic sacred physique are so powerful, but haven't they still been captured by Demon Chu? Some people retorted, saying that Demon Chu was only a little special and that those people were still incomparably powerful. Many people in the starry skies were moved and wanted to go to Earth. Many divine sons were calling their friends, saying that they wanted to go to Earth to participate in the charity banquet. Among them was the silver-haired Lolita Ing Xiao Xiao, who was very enthusiastic. Waha, this is too fun. I must go. Ing Wudi, Ing Zhixian, are you guys going? Your purest, most beautiful, and adorable sister is officially inviting you to go and offer her love to support the charity event. Boom! Her forehead was immediately hit by a finger and a big bump swelled up. Tears welled up in her eyes as she pounced forward with all her might to fight her brother and sister. Interesting, undead silkworm, we just left Earth. Why don't we go back and participate in that charity banquet? Ji Qing from the peacock race called out to the undead silkworm prince. Princess Yuan Yuan of the origin demon race was also the 10th most beautiful woman under the starry skies. She was enchanting and charming. She called out to her brother Yuan Shurching to go to the Eastern Sea, since they were originally on Earth. Brother, let's go quickly. This Demon Chu actually dared to sneak attack and rob me back in Kunlun. He stole one of my belt. I'm so angry. I want to see him face to face. At the same time, she also called out to the Vermilion Bird Fairy, the 4th most beautiful woman under the starry skies. Earth, Eastern Sea. On Eternal Island, the radiance of pearls was resplendent and the multicolored glow of treasures was dazzling. All kinds of treasures were piled up into a small mountain. This time, Chu Feng and the others had obtained too many benefits. Apart from the secret treasures on the ground, there were also some key items, spatial bracelets and so on. Among these spatial items, there were treasured medicines, weapons, and armor. It was truly a dazzling sight. Without a doubt, this was enough even if they didn't sell the Saint Children and the others. They wouldn't lack all kinds of resources for a very long time. After a round of howling, they divided the work. Some people were in charge of checking the spoils of war. Meanwhile, Chu Feng, Yellow Cattle, and Ouyang Feng began to study the innocuous divine physique and the myriad star physique. They really wanted to deprive them of their powerful origin and seize their divine blood. Chu Feng, what are you doing? The myriad star physique Su Qingxian was trembling. He was only 17 or 18 years old. He was usually frivolous and incomparably arrogant, but now he was afraid. That was because he had already heard that Chu Feng wanted to deprive him of his bloodline and refine his origin. At this moment, Ouyang Feng directly spat saliva on his face. He raised a snow-white dagger and said, "I'll cut you open. Be obedient and don't move." No. Su Qingxian was aghast. His constitution was the source of his strength. He wasn't worried about being deprived, but he was afraid of being destroyed. He didn't believe that these people could successfully transplant it, but if he allowed them to torment him, his myriad star source might be destroyed. Chu Feng smiled and said, "Don't be afraid, I promise to keep you alive." Stop, The myriad star physique struggled and roared as he resisted with all his might. Very soon, he found himself paralyzed there. His limbs were fixed in place, and some important parts had been nailed through. He couldn't move at all. Where's the so-called origin? Chu Feng, Yellow Cattle, and Ouyang Feng studied for a long time. In the end, the Black Yak, the Old Llama, and the Manchurian Tiger also came to join in the fun, but in the end, they couldn't find it. It should be spread all over his body and contained in his blood. Bring a vessel and let him bleed. The pitiful myriad star physique was used as an experiment. Whenever someone thought of an idea, they would try it on him. he immediately became a tragedy. This blood indeed contains an indescribable substance. It's pure and can be refined into a great medicine, Chu Feng said. The Manchurian tiger nodded and said, "Oh, I understand. We can continuously bleed him and raise him. We'll purify the myriad star source from his blood and sell it." Chu Feng said, "What else is there to sell? If we can really purify it, we'll turn you into the myriad star physique, the innocuous divine physique, and the origin magnetic sacred physique to replace them. After that, we can sell some remnant blood and conveniently sell their crippled bodies back to their respective sections." When they heard this, the faces of the myriad star physique and the origin magnetic sacred physique turned green. They increasingly felt that this great demon, Chu Feng, was terrifying and horrifying. "There's something good on him," Yellow Cattle said. "What is it?" Ouyang Feng asked. "You're a divine beast, so you can't use it. But to other people, it's many times more precious than a divine weapon," Yellow Cattle said. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. In a flash, Chu Feng knew what it was. It should be similar to the black and white millstone in his body and the medicinal mortar in Yellow Cattle's body. This kind of thing couldn't be refined unless one was a saint from a top-notch sect. That was because the materials needed were too particular. Moreover, it was somewhere between material and energy after taking shape. Yellow Cattle said, "This thing is hidden in the body and is somewhere between material and incorporeal. It's very difficult for outsiders to discover it, but a person like him definitely has it." Everyone nodded. As a myriad star physique, he definitely had this kind of tool on him. Chu Feng opened his fiery eyes and saw it as expected. He immediately smiled and said, "It's a small pestle filled with starlight. It can crush all kinds of energy and purify it." Great. The group was very happy. However, Chu Feng's face collapsed as he said, "I've killed the deity race's divine son and the netherworld race's saint's son in Kunlun. I'm sure they also have it on them. I was besieged at that time, so I missed it." Everyone sighed. This kind of tool was very precious. After eating a mutant fruit, there was no need to worry about side effects. It could purify the beneficial substances in the fruit and quench the harmful medicinal substances in the body. In addition, this kind of thing could purify the blood in daily life and nourish the muscles, bones, and organs. It brought about all kinds of benefits. "You bunch of bandits!" Su Qingxian roared. The small pestle in his body was a famous inheritance of the spirit race. Ordinary people weren't qualified to inherit it. I think the origin magnetic sacred physique and the innocuous divine physique also have it." The group of great demons' eyes shone with green light. Zhou Shang's face immediately lost its color. He was ashamed and angry. He wanted to rise up on this planet and become the number one, but in the end, he had fallen to this step. Not long after, the glistening yellow small pestle in Zhou Shang's body was taken away. This thing had a great origin and was an inheritance of ancient earth. Chu Feng and Yellow Cattle both had it, but as a divine beast, Ouyang Feng had a special constitution and didn't need it at all. This was the excessive part of divine beasts and immortal bird. Their innate capital was too strong. After everyone's discussion, these two items were given to the Black Yak and the old Grandmaster Wu Qifeng respectively. The Black Yak was very excited. This meant that with this divine item in his body, he might reach the peak in the future. His foundation would be many times stronger than it was now and he might become a saint. That was because this kind of item was prepared by the top sects for their direct descendants who could become saints. Following that, the origin magnetic sacred physique also roared, but it was useless. The item in his body had also been found. It was a small lamp that was very special. It burned energy impurities and refined the essence. It could also burn the mottled substances in one's blood and energy to purify it. After everyone voted, This item was given to the old llama, whose combat power was relatively high. Seeing the Manchurian tiger, the old donkey, and Zhou Quan's fiery gazes, Chu Feng said, "Don't worry, we'll strive to get one each in the future." After that, they began to search the other saint children's bodies for such items. They actually do. Some of them are very good, but some are too ordinary. Chu Feng personally appraised them. The races and orthodoxies behind the saint children he had come into contact with were all very powerful. Thus, some of them had rare treasures in their bodies. The other races, even if they weren't as powerful, had similar items. Then, the Manchurian tiger, the old donkey, the Mastiff King, and Zhou Quan were all incomparably happy. Without a doubt, everyone's overall strength would increase because of this. Even Chu Feng's parents had counterfeit items in their bodies that could also effectively refine blood and purify mutant fruit. Wait until we hunt top-notch divine children in the future, then we'll help everyone exchange for what we can use now, said Chu Feng. Zhou Shang, Su Qingxian, and the Origin Magnetic Sacred Physique roared again and again because the group had begun to focus their attention on them, searching for divine sources, star sources, and sacred sources. Some people with so-called peerless constitutions are born innately, while others are acquired. For example, the Myriad Star Physique can be created by swallowing the legendary Myriad Star Grass. In ancient times, there were people who swallowed the 9 Orifices Tribulation Flower and became the 9 Orifices Tribulation Transcendence Physique that almost threatened Yao Yao. I believe that if these 3 people relied on swallowing rare ancient medicines to obtain their constitutions, then we can completely refine their bodies and extract the medicinal properties from them. When they heard Big Blackie's demonic words, the 3 people with great constitutions almost collapsed. This bull demon was too much of a scum. That makes sense. Chu Feng nodded. Then, he stared at Zhou Shang and said, "Are you the innate innocuous divine physique, or was it created by swallowing immortal medicines?" "Born innately," Zhou Shang said through gritted teeth. "I don't care if you're lying or not. Whether it's innate or acquired, I'll directly refine you like a medicine." Chu Feng sneered. Zhou Shang said, "Chu Feng, you can't do this. We're both native evolvers. If you kill me like this, it's no different from reducing the strength of the evolvers on the mother planet. I was wrong in the past. From now on, I promise to fight shoulder to shoulder with you and face the enemies from the outer realms together." "Save it. I'm afraid of being stabbed in the back if I fight shoulder to shoulder with you. You know what you've done. For the sake of the robbery induction breathing technique, you've repeatedly targeted me. When I was away from Earth, you even hunted down my group of brothers and even wanted to attack my parents. How ruthless, how unscrupulous. Chu Feng, I was wrong in the past. I promise it won't happen again. We're both inheritors of the ancient Earth's secret arts, so we can't kill each other. Otherwise, it'll only make our enemies happy. You can't hurt me." After hearing Zhou Shang's words, Chu Feng directly slapped him and said, "Now you regret it? You've done so many evil things, yet you still expect me to forgive you. Some of the great demons of Kunlun died because of you. Can you resurrect them? Besides, so what if I kill you? Does this planet stop spinning without you? You're just a loser. Keeping you alive is of no use to me." This was undisguised contempt. Zhou Shang was not taking him seriously at all. This made Zhou Shang's heart burn with rage, and the depths of his eyes were incomparably gloomy. Unfortunately, he couldn't retaliate. "Besides, are you really a creature from this planet?" Chu Feng had always been suspicious of his identity, and the innocuous divine physique had once announced that he had come to attack a planet called Scarlet in the Loran Galaxy. "I only did that to conceal my identity so that the Outer Realm people wouldn't know my true origins," said Zhou Shang. Chu Feng said coldly, "I see that your relationship with the Outer Realm races isn't bad. You didn't even frown when you cooperated with them to kill the native evolvers. It was rather natural. Under such circumstances, it doesn't matter where you're born. You're no different from the outer realm people. You're just as ruthless and merciless to the evolvers of this planet. Do you think I can make you stay? That's right. Slaughter this June Tuoi. He's such a good-for-nothing. My poor old friends, the Panther King and the Weaver King, died so miserably. Roared one of the great demons of Kunlun. Let him bleed and boil the medicine, said Chufeng. At the same time, he also wanted to interrogate Zhou Shang. He hoped to obtain the heaven-flipping seal and the flying immortal spear, the two famous native combat techniques of ancient Earth. According to reports, they might be divine techniques. Even Uncle Ming hadn't mastered these two secret manuals. Boil 3 cauldrons of great medicine and recreate 3 powerful constitutions. Then, we'll auction off their crippled bodies. This was the plan of Chufeng and the group of great demons. Chapter 7:11. Medicinal fragrance assailed the nostrils from the 3 brass cauldrons. The water inside was bubbling and boiling. It was mixed with various medicinal ingredients and a bright red liquid that was being refined. In the distance, Zhou Shang, Su Qingxian, and Origin Magnetic Sacred Physique were on the verge of death. Their blood had been drained dozens of times during these 3 days. The so-called divine blood, myriad star blood, and saint blood in their bodies had dried up and been refined completely. But it wasn't over yet. Every time their blood dried up and they fainted, some blood-replenishing medicine would be stuffed into their mouth. Moreover, Ouyang Feng, the Black Yak, and the others personally helped them circulate their energy to revive their divine bodies and myriad star physique, allowing them to display the various mysteries of their constitutions. The 3 of them were continuously squeezed dry. Their bodies dried up again, and their vitality was almost completely extracted. Su Qingxian was incomparably hateful. He felt that he was truly crippled. His myriad star physique's origin had been severely drained, and more than 70% of it had dissipated through his blood. If this went on, he would really be finished. He was clear about his own situation. His constitution had transformed because he had eaten a stalk of myriad star grass, and he had obtained his illustrious reputation today. But now, Great Demon Chu was refining him like a kind of medicine, constantly draining his blood and extracting its medicinal properties. In the end, he would definitely lose everything. Zhou Shang was also roaring with boundless anger. He had already been drained 41 times, and his entire body was almost all skin and bones. The divine blood in his body had dried up dozens of times and was completely squeezed out. In the distance, a brass cauldron's medicinal fragrance assailed the nostrils. That was a mixture of innocuous divine blood and various medicinal ingredients being refined. The effects aren't bad. After testing, the medicinal properties are astonishing. It can be refined into a great medicine, said the Manchurian tiger. He was watching over the 3 bronze cauldrons. Chufeng said, "Very good. I believe that the medicinal properties of their origin can be refined in the end. It will end when their bodies become crippled. At that time, the medicinal properties will more or less be extracted. Chufeng, you will suffer retribution. Sooner or later, you will be struck by lightning from the heavens." Origin Magnetic Sacred Physique gritted his teeth and howled. He was already in despair and couldn't escape. In the end, his divine blood would be stripped away and he would be completely crippled. Your threats and curses are meaningless. Try something else. I was struck by lightning not long ago, but I'm still alive and kicking right now. That so-called heavenly tribulation is nothing more than this. Let's clean up. The charity banquet is about to start. We have to welcome the guests, Chufeng said. Everyone laughed. Other than Chufeng's parents, the old Grandmaster Wu Qifeng, and a few others who didn't want to join in the fun. Everyone else started to get ready, wanting to go together. Old Bear, what do you think of me? Old Donkey bared his buck teeth and asked the Black Bear King. It's better to wear a mask, the Black Bear said. What do you mean? Old Donkey asked. The front teeth are too big, the Black Bear King told him directly. Hee-haw, Black Bear, don't hit me in the face when you hit me, but don't point out my shortcomings when you scold me. You're too mean. In the end, most of this group of people had similar styles. Almost all of them had been influenced by the big black yak. They all had swept-back hair, black sunglasses, and cigars as thick as carrots in their mouths. Chu Feng was speechless. This group of people didn't look like good people at all. No matter how he looked at them, they looked like big brothers from the underworld. None of them looked like good people when they were gathered together. The elder ape of the Great Woods Temple, the slanted Ouyang Feng, the old donkey who took advantage of people the moment he opened his mouth, and Zhou Quan with 4 horns hidden in his swept-back hair. None of them looked normal. As for the gangster-like old black, there was no need to talk about him. He strode over with his swept-back hair and a cigar in his mouth. He was dressed in a black suit. Only the old llama could be considered kind and amiable. He wouldn't listen to them change their styles even if he was beaten to death. If he were also dressed like that and revealed his big bald head, that would be a big joke. It would definitely make people believe that there were no good people here, only scoundrels. However, the Horse King filled in for him. He was dressed in a gangster-like black suit and shook his shiny bald head as he mixed in with the group. That was a fierce sight. Brother, you're not being serious at all. We're attending a banquet today. You have to wear formal clothes. The big black yak was showing off, saying that Chu Feng wasn't being particular. I'm going to extort and sell people. I'm not really attending a banquet, Chu Feng corrected directly. The dragoness smiled faintly. Her blue hair was glowing, and a pair of dragon horns could be faintly seen amidst her long hair. Her figure was slender, and her skin was as white as snow. She was exceptionally beautiful. Fortunately, her attire could be considered normal. Her aqua blue dress dragged on the ground, showing off her exceptional charm. Bring along those living saints' sons and saintesses, as well as the food ingredients. Set sail. Afterwards, the group of tied-up saints' sons and saintesses formed a long string and were driven onto a giant rainbow-colored divine ship. This was the largest ship left on the sea when the Allied army attacked. It was said that this ship belonged to a certain group of space pirates. It could be considered an astonishing secret treasure that could realize spatial transitions. The group of saints' sons and saintesses were now listless and incomparably dispirited. This time they had completely failed. They were incomparably vexed and resentful. They were being herded like cattle to be sold off. Go quickly. Don't dilly-dally. I'll cook whoever doesn't cooperate, the Manchurian tiger urged. The big black yak was also threatening them. Those saintesses are the ones who said that their culinary skills aren't bad. The banquet's feast will all depend on you. Otherwise, this old yak will personally stew all of you. The group of saints' sons and saintesses secretly gritted their teeth. The situation was too tragic. They had been reduced to prisoners, berated, and had to do all kinds of manual labor. For instance, some of the saints' sons were still responsible for steering the large ship and sailing on the sea after their shoulder blades had been pierced by divine chains. Finally, they arrived at the designated location and left the misty region of Mount Eternal. The rainbow-colored ship floated on the eastern sea. It was indeed very big, like a mountain suspended on the sea. At this moment, the red sun was setting in the west. The bright red sunset dyed the sea red, especially the western sea. The sea and sky were the same color, and the sunset carried a faint golden luster. It reflected the sky and sea in a patch of scarlet red and dazzling. The guests are here. Old Donkey welcomed them. The big black yak seemed to have become a butler as he ordered the old donkey around. The old donkey had changed into a formal attire. Although he had transformed into a human form, his big ears were still very obvious. He led a few saintesses to the ship's railing and greeted the guests with a smile. "Welcome." As the old donkey and the captured saintesses shouted in unison, Chu Feng's nose almost became crooked from anger. He said, "How vulgar! What kind of show are you guys putting on? It's like a small restaurant. I also feel that it's awkward. Just stand on both sides with a smile and set off Grandpa Donkey's handsomeness. Grandpa Donkey will welcome the guests myself." The old donkey accidentally revealed a hoof, and his transformation wasn't complete. He quickly hid it in his sleeve and began to formally welcome the guests. Hee-haw, welcome." Chu Feng lost all his temper after seeing this. He turned around and left. The big black yak smoothed things over and said, "It's fine. In any case, we're here to extort people. There's really no need to make it so fresh and refined." He also came over to help and stood on both sides with the Manchurian tiger. Both of them wore big black sunglasses and looked like two hoodlum door gods. Immortal destiny physique? The old donkey's odd cry came from the deck. He hadn't expected to welcome a big fish who had arrived so early. After that, Chu Feng also turned around and sized up the immortal destiny physique. This person had fought fiercely with him on Mount Kunlun. He didn't expect him to be so daring as to actually come to the banquet. "Brother Chu, I only fought with you to catch the robber when you disguised yourself as the bronze-masked bandit. It was a misunderstanding. Today, I want to buy some items from the auction. We'll only talk business and not fight." The immortal destiny physique was quite calm. His hair was sparkling, and energy seeped out from his pores. This person wasn't just ordinarily powerful. Even yellow cattle became serious. "That's easy. Please come inside, Dao brother. Additionally, I still haven't asked for your distinguished name." Chu Feng also wore a smile and didn't turn hostile. "Jing Tianming." The immortal destiny physique answered. "Jing Tianming, fighting for the mandate of heaven?" Chu Feng nodded and invited the immortal destiny physique inside. An auspicious cloud floated over. It was so colorful that it made the sunset glow dim. This caused cries of surprise to ring out from the nearby sea. That was because someone recognized the people on the colorful cloud. They were from the quasi-immortal race. Ing Wudi stood tall and heroic with an imposing appearance. He was a dragon among men with an extraordinary temperament. He was known as one of the strongest young experts in this cosmos. Ing Zhixian had a graceful and elegant figure. Her silver hair fluttered in the wind and her beautiful eyes were misty. She was the third most beautiful woman under the starry skies. The last one was a silver-haired Lolita. She was mischievous and her big eyes blinked back and forth as she looked at Chu Feng. What an obedient and beautiful young lady. "Come, big brother Feng, we'll take you to see the whales." Many people's faces darkened when these words were spoken. Naturally, the silver-haired Lolita Ing Xiaoxiao's elder brother and elder sister were among them. Chu Feng's face also darkened because he wasn't the one who said it. It was Ouyang Feng. He was a little slow on the uptake and finally understood why this fellow's name had the word Feng in it. He could make things difficult for him at crucial moments. Ouyang Feng's face was covered in golden stripes as he grinned widely. He moved closer to Ing Xiaoxiao and wanted to take her to see the whales. The silver-haired Lolita's eyes were bright. She could tell at a glance that he wasn't actually that old. She said, "You damn toad. You're only a bean, yet you dare to imitate others and pretend to be a strange uncle. Die." Toad immediately squinted and was about to spit out his saliva when Chu Feng hurriedly pulled him to the side of the ship so that his saliva could be sprayed into the sea. In the end, a large number of dead fish appeared and floated on the surface of the sea with their white bellies. "So poisonous!" the old donkey cried out strangely. The group of people was speechless as they looked at Ouyang Feng. Ingwudi nodded at Chu Feng, but he didn't say anything. It was evident that he had a rather bad impression of him because Chu Feng had robbed his elder and younger sister. Ing Zhixian, on the other hand, smiled in greeting. Even though she had been knocked unconscious and had her secret treasure belt snatched away, she didn't turn hostile at this moment. Chu Feng welcomed her with a smile and greeted her. "Fairying, please come this way. You're truly like the bright moon in the sky, bright and flawless. You're above the common populace and you're worthy of the title Fairy Zhixian." The silver-haired Lolita smiled sweetly at the side and said, "He, Chu Feng, do you want to be my brother-in-law? It'll be very difficult. That group of old monsters in my family are very inflexible. Have you seen Ingwudi? He's pretending to be profound and mature at such a young age. You can guess how inflexible that group of old men in my family are. This little fellow simply wouldn't rest until he shocked people to death with his words." She was directly pulled by her elder sister by the ear and carried away, thus avoiding the outcome of being suppressed by Ingwudi. People from all walks of life rushed over continuously. Chu Feng thought there wouldn't be many people because the sects in the starry sky who were interested in the auction should be auctioning through the internet. He didn't expect that many orthodoxies would send representatives to personally come to the scene. At the same time, there were also evolvers on Earth. For example, a youth with wheat-colored skin and a robust body with short hair appeared here while riding on a parrot. "Vajra?" Chu Feng was astonished as he recognized him immediately. At that time, when the world had just started to change, there were 4 mutants among the younger generation: Silver Wing, Vajra, Fire Spirit King, and White Tiger. At the same time, Chu Feng also recognized his mount. It was precisely the parrot that yelled Vajra was riding a pig during the battle at Mount Taihang. Chu Feng was speechless and a little confused. In the end, the parrot opened its mouth and said, "Damn it, this wild boar rider is taking revenge. Demon King Chu Feng, save me! I don't want to be his mount. I've suffered for over a year." Chu Feng didn't pay attention to this kind of request because he felt guilty toward Vajra. Back when he had killed some experts from the Celestial Biology Corporation, Vajra had taken the blame for him several times. "Brother Chu, long time no see. Who would have thought we'd come this far?" Vajra seemed rather emotional. "Brother Vajra, please come inside. We'll talk in detail in a while." Chu Feng patted his shoulder and welcomed him personally. Next, many unexpected guests appeared such as Yang Xian, Hu Qingqing, and Qing Lan. Chu Feng immediately laughed and went up to them incomparably affectionately, directly calling them brother-in-law and sister-in-law. In the end, the 3 people's faces darkened on the spot. Only after seeing Yang Shan and Hu Ruoxian behind them did Chu Feng restrain himself. Princess Lin of the Origin Magnetic Immortal Cave had also arrived. She had a complicated expression when she met Chu Feng once again. Back then, she had believed that Chu Feng wouldn't be able to rise and would be suppressed by the divine sons of the outer realm. She had even given up a good karma for this reason. Back then, she hadn't warned Chu Feng in advance when he was attacked by the 100 Transformations Saint Child, Yuan Feng. "Princess Qi Lin, please." Chu Feng gestured. "Who would have thought you'd actually come this far?" Qi Lin couldn't help but speak. This was truly an unexpected outcome. The natives of Earth had actually swept through the various divine sons and saintesses, capturing them in batches and holding several auctions. Even now, she still felt that it was unreal. Later on, representatives from the outer realm arrived in succession. Many of them were here to bid for their own saint children, while others were here to inquire about their missing saintesses. Later on, some old friends from Earth arrived, such as the golden-winged rock of Mount Hua and the old mountain tortoise of Mount Kongtong. Next, Jiang Luotian, who had a complicated relationship with Chu Feng, appeared. She was still as beautiful as ever, worthy of her title as the national goddess. She came with her bosom friend, Xia Qinyu. Chu Feng, who would have thought you'd be able to cause so much trouble. Now you can even harm the extraterrestrials, Jiang Luotian said softly. Jiang Luotian spoke softly. In truth, she was a bit nervous. Could she still speak to Chu Feng like this at this point? Apparently, she was overthinking things. Chu Feng didn't put on any airs and was still the same as before. You'll also be selling secret treasures today. Can I give you a discount if I like them? Jiang Luotian asked with a smile. Of course not. We've slept together before. I'll give you whatever I like. Chu Feng waved his hand casually. Go to hell. Jiang Luotian was both embarrassed and angry as she hurriedly walked inside. However, Xia Qinyu had a strange expression on her face. She whispered in a secluded place, Luotian, you're really open-minded. Be careful. You want to die? What nonsense are you spouting? Soon after, the Vermilion Bird Fairy, the Undead Silkworm Prince, Yuan Shiqing, Yuan Yuan, and other important characters arrived. There were also a few people who seemed to have special constitutions. Everyone, please forgive us for our poor hospitality. The Black Yak was like a hoodlum. He was dressed in a suit and leather shoes, and his hair was shiny after being oiled. He was actually in charge of hosting. The Manchurian Tiger was his assistant, and the old donkey was running around. Ouyang Yi and the Toad were also on his left and right. They were in charge of patrolling the place. This kind of combination made everyone present speechless. The food isn't bad, someone whispered. Many evolvers revealed odd expressions after choosing some food because they felt that it wasn't inferior to the delicacies of the outer realms. Before long, some people gathered together and chatted with wine glasses. The atmosphere could be considered harmonious. Someone asked, Brother Chu Feng, what ingredients are these? I feel that they're quite good. They're not inferior to the delicacies of the top-grade orthodoxies banquets. As the chief steward, the Black Yak immediately grinned and took over the conversation. It's not that I want to say this, but those so-called banquets in the outer realms can't compare to ours. Do you know what you're eating? A top-grade saint child who transformed into his true form and fried some ribs. What did you say? Which saint child? The Golden Mountain Goat Saint Child. The Manchurian Tiger, as the assistant, immediately went forward and was in charge of answering. That person was petrified on the spot and couldn't move at all. The Toad stood at the side and immediately curled his lips in disdain. He glanced sideways at him and said, Alien, you're so inexperienced. You've never eaten before, have you? F***CK. That's our race's saint child. This guest cried and went crazy. What ingredients are these? The people nearby all stood up and asked seriously about their food. This is a white jade elephant's trunk. Oh, this is a 5-colored deer breast. This plate should be a 3-colored crab cake. Yes, remember, this is a race known as the divine crab in the depths of the starry skies. The old donkey was very enthusiastic as he introduced the food. In the end, the faces of the people around him turned green. That was because the people eating were all divine sons and saintesses. They were actually used as ingredients. The big Black Yak introduced in a carefree manner and said, weren't there a lot of evolvers trapped in the heavenly fire thunder domain last time? Some of them couldn't hold on and died. In the spirit of not wasting food, we gathered a large amount of roasted ingredient. Now everyone has the fortune to eat. Chapter 7:12. For a moment, it was unknown how many people at the banquet slammed the table and stood up in anger. They wanted to discuss the Tao with the Black Yak, Old Donkey, and Chu Feng to demand an explanation. God-damned good food. You're going too far. Demon King Chu Feng, Bull Demon, you must give us an explanation, roared a middle-aged man. Chu Feng stood up with a thump and asked him calmly, You want me to give you an explanation by name? This The middle-aged man stammered on the spot, unable to advance or retreat. How could he not be afraid after calming down? This young demon had killed over 9,000 evolvers in one go. There was nothing he didn't dare to do. Now, he was challenging him in front of everyone. This was somewhat suspicious of courting death. He was afraid on the spot and was in a dilemma. Old Donkey came up to smooth things over and asked Chu Feng to sit back down. Hee-haw, I say, everyone, you're wrongly accusing people. He shouted as soon as he came up, which made the group of people feel disgusted. They had never seen such a shameless person who took advantage of others as soon as he came up. Old Donkey continued, "We're warm and hospitable and offer the best delicacies. You have to know that even powerful sects like the deity race, Shilin clan, Damning Pure Land, and Spirit race can't bear to make Divine Sun's feast and Saintess delicacies. Isn't this enough to explain the problem?" It would have been better if Old Donkey hadn't mentioned it. After mentioning it like this, some people exploded in anger on the spot. There were even some who were making a racket. "Donkey, you're really hateful," shouted an old man across from him. Old Donkey didn't like what he heard and said, "Old goat, you were eating more deliciously than anyone else just now, but you're falling out with me after eating. What kind of morality is this? What did you give me to eat?" "The ribs of the golden goat Saint's son." "Ugh! I'm ashamed to face the Saint's son." That old man squeezed out a few drops of tears. Old Donkey couldn't take it any more and said, "This is a buffet. You chose it yourself, and we offered up the best delicacies. I clearly saw you go to get your food again and again. I didn't know that was my race's Saint's son. You are shameless and hateful, deceiving me." At this time, the toad stuck its head out and slanted its eyes in disdain. "Are you illiterate? Every dish has such big words beside them. They're clearly written and clearly introduced. It's really scary how uneducated extraterrestrials are." Being looked down upon by a slanted toad, not only did the elder feel resentful, many others were momentarily speechless. They all wanted to curse inwardly, because many of them didn't recognize those words. "Is this an ancient divine text? We don't recognize it," someone said in a soft voice. "This is Earth's common language, okay? Be more careful and learn more words." "You guys are really ignorant and incompetent." Ouyang Toad shook his head. The group of people suddenly wanted to vomit blood. What the hell, it was just a modern language on Earth. Who would be able to recognize it? It wasn't like they were from a particularly famous evolutionary civilization. In their hearts, Earth was still considered a piece of wild land, a barbarian planet that had declined to the point where it could no longer be mentioned. After that, people discovered that the old donkey and the toad Ouyang had completely strayed off topic after getting involved. Many people were dissatisfied and expressed their indignation. Because of this, the black yak appeared with a smile on his face. He looked very amiable and publicly said that this was a work error. He immediately used the common language of the universe to label all kinds of food. At the same time, he would change the food for a small portion of the dissatisfied guests. Indeed, only a small portion of people were unlucky enough to eat their own race's Saint's son. The others were still quite shocked and curious. After all, it was impossible to eat such ingredients even in some of the most important events in the universe. In truth, what happened here was immediately transmitted back to the starry skies and caused a huge uproar. Doubtlessly, the minority races involved were filled with killing intent. Their sect masters and imperial rulers were furious and wanted nothing more than to kill Chu Feng immediately. However, there were even more people on the Origin Beast platform who were boiling over like a landslide or tsunami. "Oh my, I'm so envious, jealous, and hateful. To be able to eat Saint's Sun dishes, Divine Sun ribs, and Saintess crab cakes. This is truly an extraordinary fortune. It's worth bragging about for the rest of my life. What a waste! I also want to eat such a feast." Then, the images transmitted from Earth to the starry skies showed that the 8 chefs all had great origins. The group of people stared straight at them. At this moment, the Black Yak led a group of kitchen maids onto the stage. They added more food to the distinguished guests and inquired about their well-being. Damn, isn't that the Saintess Mu Xian? She's actually one of the chefs. Oh my, who did I see? It's Fairy Su Fei. She's a maid, serving tea and pouring water for people. Doubtlessly, the scenes at the Eastern Seas banquet made many evolvers from various races in the starry skies unable to sit still. They wanted nothing more than to attend the banquet immediately. Respected ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Eastern Sea Charity Banquet. On behalf of Chu Feng and Mount Eternal, Old Yak sincerely thanks everyone for coming. At this moment, the Black Yak was not only the housekeeper but also the host. He was talking incessantly there. After a series of respectful speeches, he said, "Here, we solemnly declare that the proceeds from tonight's auction will be donated to Mount Eternal to support the rise of evolvers there. We guarantee that we won't embezzle a single cent." The group of people wanted to throw rotten eggs at him, but they couldn't find any after searching for a long time. Many evolvers were cursing and swearing in their hearts. Wasn't this just an auction held by a group of bandits from Mount Eternal? They wanted to sell saint children from all walks of life, but now they actually said it in such a fresh and refined manner. It was really shameful. Silence. The old Lama appeared in a monastic robe draped over his shoulders. He looked solemn and dignified as he looked at all the guests. Then, he opened his mouth and announced, "The auction officially begins." The group of people felt dizzy. The Buddhist race was also involved? "Hello, is Grandmaster Bajia from the Buddhist race here? It's me, Old Wu. I'm in the Milky Way. Yes, I'm participating in an auction on Earth. I'm a little dizzy when I see people from the Buddhist race supporting Great Demon Chu. What, the Buddhist race talks about fate? You don't know what's going on either? Let fate decide? Hey, Grandmaster Bajia, say something." Someone immediately contacted the powerhouses of the Buddhist race, feeling very guilty. That was because the Buddhist race and the Tao race were among the top races in the universe. They were ridiculously powerful. Don't contact them. Do you really think you're from the Buddhist race just because you've shaved your head? Look over there, there's a big baldy wearing sunglasses and holding a cigar in his mouth. He's eating meat and drinking wine in big bowls. He's definitely not from the Buddhist race. Someone gestured toward the Horse King with his mouth. Amitabha Buddha, the Horse King, has 3 eyes. He really is a Buddhist. The Horse King glared. Upon seeing this, the 2 people immediately cursed their bad luck. It had to be said that the atmosphere at the scene was enthusiastic. Perhaps it could also be said that it was very chaotic. Just the combination of the toad who was looking askance at people, the ruffian Big Black Yak, the 4-horned Zhou, and the bald and shiny Horse King made it impossible for them to calm down. Quiet down. Now, please take a look at the first auction item. The elder ape from the Great Woods Temple also appeared as the auctioneer. He held a big stick and used it as a hammer as he hammered the item. The people were in an uproar. The first item to be auctioned was a beauty, one who could be considered a rare beauty. This is the Saintess of the 9 Lives cat race. Even she has been captured and left here. How shocking! At this time, many people were ineffably shaken. That was because the Saintess of the 9 Lives cat race was an expert ranked in the 60s among the younger generation. This kind of ranking was enough to look down on countless people of the younger generation. She was destined to become a saint in the future, yet she had actually been captured and suppressed here. Before this, people actually didn't know. It could be said that the scene became silent within a short period of time. Everyone was truly subdued. In the starry skies, the people watching the live broadcast were also shaken and dumbfounded. The big black yak saw that the situation wasn't right. He felt that there was going to be an awkward silence because he didn't know the rankings of the cat race saintesses. He immediately shot a glance at the Manchurian tiger and asked him to act as a prop. Everyone, don't miss this opportunity. Do you see this lady? She's a pure tiger race expert. Do you see her clothes as white as snow? She's quite otherworldly and beautiful. Let me tell you clearly that her status is noble. Yes, those who don't know her might think she's from the cat race, but that's not the case. She's from the white tiger race. The Manchurian tiger's spittle flew everywhere. He felt that the so-called cat race saintess couldn't compare to the tiger race. That was why he was doing his best to fake the price. The group of people was fairly speechless. They felt that he didn't understand the market and didn't know how great the origins of the 9 lives cat race were. Many tiger races simply couldn't compare. The old donkey whispered, "Brother, come down from the stage. Stop raising the price. I saw the comments of those grandsons on the Origin Beast platform. They're all scolding you, saying you're pretending to know when you don't. This is the saintess of the 9 lives cat race. She'll definitely fetch a sky-high price." As expected, when the Manchurian tiger jumped down from the stage with a dark expression, many people immediately rushed to bid. In the blink of an eye, the price of the saintess of the 9 lives cat race had been raised to a sky-high price. Afterward, her clansmen appeared on the stage and looked disdainfully at everyone present. They even warned the bidders in the starry skies that in the end, they had successfully bought their saintess. The final price was 5 six-path reincarnation pills and 10 drops of deity elixir. This price was simply too extravagant. Everyone's eyes were glued to it. In the past, Chu Feng had sold so many saint children. Apart from the deity sons, the others could only be exchanged for 1 six-path reincarnation pill per dozen. Today, one person could exchange for so many. This was an absolutely sky-high price. Clang, clang, clang. The elder ape of the Great Woods Temple pursed his lips and was very solemn. He swung his big stick 3 times in succession and finally shouted, "Sold." Everyone was speechless again. "All right, the second treasure we're going to auction is a dragon steed." The black yak shouted with all his might, stirring up the atmosphere. Afterward, a tall divine steed was led over. It was fairly robust and its 4 hooves were glowing. A portion of its fur was silvery white like satin. It was a divine steed. Of course, a large portion of its fur was dark. For instance, its mane and tail were completely bare. The black yak said, "I'm sorry, Brother Chu Feng is a domain researcher. Sometimes, he needs a spiritual brush to draw domain runes. That's why he plucked out some of the spiritual fur on this dragon steed. My brother is going to make a divine brush later. But don't worry, this dragon steed's constitution is extremely strong. It'll recover in no time." Everyone was dumbfounded. This pitiful saint child of the heavenly horse race. He was known as one of the fastest runners of the younger generation in the universe. His movement techniques were astonishing. He had actually been caught and couldn't escape. He had even fallen to such a state. The old donkey appeared and introduced seriously. Of course, this was also to brag and raise the price. He said, "Everyone, please don't worry. I'll appraise him as a member of his family. This mule can run extremely fast and possesses divine speed." "A mule?" The group of people almost fell to the ground. As for the saint child of the heavenly horse race, he almost stood up and fought the old donkey to the death. His eyes immediately turned red. Clang! In the end, the old donkey was ambushed and kicked by the Pegasus. The old donkey cried out in pain and fell down the platform in a sorry state. However, he was very professional and said, "Everyone, please excuse me. This mule's temper is a bit bad, but it doesn't matter. As long as you can tame it, I guarantee you'll be able to run as fast as lightning." The black yak waved at him and said, "Old donkey, come down. Those June Tua eggs on the Origin Beast platform are cursing you badly. They said your donkey eyes don't recognize a Pegasus. They're almost done cursing you. Come back quickly and stop raising the price. This is really embarrassing. In the end, the heavenly horse Saint Child's price was even higher than the Saintess of the 9 Lives cat race. Many people had their eyes on his extreme speed. He was the Saint Child of the heavenly horse race and was destined to be one of the fastest beings in the entire starry skies. How ridiculous! A mule is worth 6 six-path reincarnation pills? Are those people crazy? The old donkey was dumbfounded. Clang, clang, clang. The elder ape of the Great Woods Temple swung his big stick and smashed it 3 times in a row to announce the deal. The black yak began to introduce the next auction item and said, "As the saying goes, a 3-legged toad is hard to find, but there are plenty of 2-legged people. Today, we're fortunate enough to catch a 3-legged golden toad. Everyone, please take a look." After that, the black yak, the old donkey, and the Manchurian tiger saw that Ouyang Feng had decisively followed him onto the stage and walked toward the auction item. Chapter 713. Originally, I wanted to write both chapters together, but seeing that I couldn't take any longer, I decided to write one long chapter. I'll write another one later. The high platform was very spacious. A 3-legged golden toad was standing there with its belly and cheeks puffed up. It stared at everyone with discontent. It could be considered an auspicious beast with extraordinary abilities. It could spit out money and drop secret treasures and weapons. It was very powerful. It thought that the toad would be like the old donkey and the Manchurian tiger, relying on its resemblance to its owner to talk nonsense and drive up the price. "I'm different from you. I'm an auspicious beast. Our race is rare in the universe. Whoever invites me away has to be worshipped." The 3-legged golden toad puffed up its cheeks and glared angrily. It was extremely arrogant. This was indeed the case. In large-scale battles between evolvers, this kind of creature would often be invited to the front lines. Once the battle started, there would inevitably be a terrifying saint-rank 3-legged golden toad spitting out money to seize the weapons of the opposing evolver army. Due to the rarity of this kind of creature, even if they didn't form an evolutionary sect, they still had a high status and were valued by various races. That was why the 3-legged golden toad wasn't worried at all. On the contrary, it was arrogant and sulking. It looked askance at Ouyang Feng with an incomparably conceited appearance. However, it was overthinking things. Ouyang Feng's golden-striped face was somewhat gloomy after he got on stage. Without saying anything, he kicked the 3-legged golden toad and then lifted it up to give it a beating. "Disappointing thing, I made you a captive. F***ck, you still dare to look at me out of the corner of your eyes. Just looking at you makes me angry. I made you golden, I made you a golden toad. Isn't this ruining my reputation? You think you're from the same clan as me? You coward, I'll beat you to death." Ouyang kicked and slashed, beating the 3-legged golden toad until it cried out. It couldn't take it anymore and was completely dumbfounded. It thought that Ouyang Feng would go all out to praise it and drive up the price, but in the end, this was the result. "Oh my God! What's going on?" The group was dumbfounded. This time, it wasn't driving up the price but beating it up? All the guests were speechless. Some people guessed that this was the latest unconventional method of driving up the price. Then, some people jeered. "Kick the 3-legged golden toad twice and it'll still be the same price." Bang bang bang, on the high platform, the 3-legged golden toad had a bloody nose and a swollen face. The golden radiance around its body had dimmed. Its entire body was twitching as it wept bitterly, begging for mercy. "Stop fighting. We're all toads, born from the same root. Why are you in such a hurry to torture each other?" The three-legged golden toad started foaming at the mouth as it cried out in pain. There were also treasure fall coins that were formed from energy, scattering all over the ground. Ouyang Feng didn't stop as he said, "You're still trying to be polite? I'll beat you to death, you damn toad. I'll make you transform into me. Let me tell you, I'm a mythological beast, not a monster like you. I'm only temporarily in this state. I'm crying. This is my original body." The three-legged golden toad cried loudly. Then, it decisively transformed into a human. Comparatively speaking, its destructive power wasn't enough, so it wasn't restricted. There weren't any divine chains that pierced through its shoulder blades. At this moment, he had become a youth whose face was covered in the imprints of gold and copper coins. He was aggrieved as he endured Ouyang Feng's punches. Everyone was rather speechless, especially those saint children and saintesses who were waiting to be auctioned off. They felt that transforming into human form was risky and that they needed to be cautious on the stage. "Alright, brother. A group of people on the Origin Beast platform are praising you and praising you. Hurry up and stop." The black yak quickly dissuaded him. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to sell the three-legged golden toad if he were to cripple it. The Manchurian tiger and old donkey immediately became unhappy and made a ruckus. "What is this? I'm being cursed to death for selling a cat, yet Brother Ouyang is being praised for beating up a toad. Hee-haw, it's really unfair. Grandpa Donkey only sold a mule, yet that group of grandsons on the Origin Beast platform are shouting to kill me. They're saying that my donkey's eyes don't recognize gold and jade. Achoo!" The reason was very simple. The three-legged golden toad was very useful in the great battle between evolvers. It had also caused them to be arrogant. Wherever they went, people would worship them and order them around. They would frequently stick out their bellies and puff out their cheeks as they didn't look anyone in the eye. As such, a group of people naturally applauded when they saw someone beating up the genius of this race. Of course, their attitude would be another matter if they really waited for a certain sect to bid for it back. With a swoosh, Ouyang Feng jumped off the stage. In the end, the three-legged golden toad and the Pegasus Saint Child reached the same price. The elder ape from the Great Woods Temple struck down 3 times with his stick to seal the deal. "We've struck it rich. I didn't expect these goods to be so expensive. If I had known earlier, Brother Chu Feng would have been merciful and burned fewer saint children to death. These are all 6-path reincarnation pills. However, the following items weren't as popular and the final prices weren't high. Hey, that 2-headed golden lion. You're so bold and powerful, yet you didn't even earn back a single 6-path reincarnation pill. How can you be so cheap?" shouted the old donkey. Zhou Quan, the old bear, and the others also couldn't understand. They said that the people participating in the auction were suppressing the price. The Golden Lion King immediately felt the urge to cry. It was already shameful enough that it had been captured and auctioned off. Now, someone was saying that it was cheap. It really wanted to bite that donkey to death in one bite and slap that 4-horned humanoid monster to death. The East Sea at night was undulating. A bright moon hung high in the sky, shining on the surface of the sea. From time to time, it would be smashed into pieces by the wave. The mountain-like ship was brightly lit. The auction was proceeding in an orderly manner. Chu Feng walked out. He had just chatted with Vajra and unexpectedly found Silver Wing, one of the 4 mutants, talking to him for a long time. Silver Wing mentioned Linoy and asked Chu Feng if he knew where she was. Ever since Linoy disappeared, celestial biology had been deteriorating. Not to mention the evolved beings from the outer realms, it was even at the bottom of the financial groups. After a while, Chu Feng left. He stood alone on the deck and looked up at the starry sky. He frowned and felt a little disappointed. Linoy had been gone for a long time. Recently, he had actually forgotten about her. But when he really thought about it, he sighed again. That was because he was a little doubtful whether Linoy was still in this sea of stars. Now that he thought about it, she was in control of a superstar inheritance tower. That tower was very special. It could actually be divided into two halves, like yin and yang. Because of this, he had asked Yao Yao and Uncle Ming. That was one of the most important energy towers in ancient times. It was said that it had been studied for a long time without being fully understood. So much so that a certain big shot had specially studied it for many years. Only when Chu Feng discovered Yao Yao's grandfather's secret under Mount Zhijin and talked to Uncle Ming did Uncle Ming tell him that the mysterious big shot who studied the superstar tower was Yao Yao's grandfather. Yao Yao's grandfather had unexpectedly obtained a yin and yang energy tower that could be divided into two halves. It was definitely not an ordinary item. Chu Feng felt that Linoy must have triggered some kind of factor to be able to unexpectedly obtain the inheritance from above. Otherwise, it would be difficult to obtain it. Moreover, he even suspected that Linoy might not be in this universe now. Perhaps she was in a broken universe in the primal chaos? He couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. That was because the things Yao Yao's grandfather studied were all related to the Yang realm. He wanted to fight his way back to the Yang realm. Then, Chu Feng discovered Ying Zhixian of the quasi-saint race. He held her sister's hand and came to the other side of the deck to watch the recovered Earth's seascape. Clearly, they weren't simply appreciating the beautiful scenery. There was an old woman beside them who was overlooking the eastern sea under the night sky and observing the density of the spiritual qi. Oh, there were many underwater caves back then. I reckon the most famous ones will only come into being after a period of time. The old woman's lips opened and closed, but no sound came out. However, Chu Feng's fiery eyes saw everything clearly. He could understand the universal language through her movement. Ah, Demon King Chu Feng, you're here too. You have to know that you can scare people to death, cried Ying Xiaoxiao. They had discovered Chu Feng. Chu Feng walked over very naturally to worm his way into their relationship. He would soon enter the starry skies again. If he could avoid it, he didn't want to become enemies with the whole world. One of the deity race in the top 10 was enough to keep him busy. Chu Feng, you robbed us and stole my snacks, cried the silver-haired little Lolita, touching his sore spot. In the next second, her mouth was stuffed with some snacks by Chu Feng as if he was performing a magic trick. She couldn't say anything as she whimpered. Then, Chu Feng and Ying Zhixian began to chat. They looked as if they regretted not meeting earlier and were incomparably enthusiastic. The old woman beside them was rather old-fashioned. She stood there expressionlessly until the end, looking at Chu Feng several times as if she was guarding against a big-tailed wolf. This made Chu Feng rather speechless. Chu Feng, you undid my sister's belt. Where's that secret treasure? The silver-haired little Lolita's speech was unclear as she shouted while eating. I'll return this to you. Chu Feng rummaged through the spatial bracelet. Then, he broke out in cold sweat because there were quite a few belts inside. He had forgotten which one belonged to the third most beautiful woman in the starry skies. The silver-haired little Lolita's hands were swift. She grabbed them all in a short while and cried out, "So many belts for women. You pervert, you've done all sorts of bad things." At this moment, the vermilion bird fairy just happened to walk out. She was coming for Chu Feng and saw her belt in a glance. Behind her was Yuan Yuan from the Origin Demon race. These two had great origins and were also extremely high-ranking beauties. They stared at Chu Feng together. I still have things to do. Let's talk later. Chu Feng snatched a few special belts made of spirit-binding cords and stuffed them into the spatial bracelet. Then, he turned around and ran away. He wasn't prepared to deal with a few women at the same time. Even if he wanted to bury the hatchet and resolve misunderstandings, he had to do it one by one slowly. If they were all stuck together, he reckoned that something would happen and he would be attacked together. Brother, The first 3 volumes of The World's End Near at Hand, Divine Feet, and Earth Shrinking have been provided. The Black Yak saw him, and transmitted his voice with a smile. Chu Feng was immediately delighted. He had the first 2 volumes of The World's End Near at Hand, and had also seized the first volume of Earth Shrinking from the other saint children. These were the few famous speed-related techniques in the starry skies. If each of them was complete, it could be considered a divine technique. He wanted to study them all once and find an opportunity to verify them. He hoped to refine the essence of these techniques. At this moment, a divine glow appeared in Chu Feng's eyes as he swept his gaze over all the guests. He had always been on guard to prevent people from the outer realms from coming in and causing unnecessary casualties. That was because there were some truly top-notch young experts among those who had come this time, such as Yuan Shiqing, Ing Wudi, the Immortal Destiny Physique, the Undead Silkworm Prince, and the Peacock Race's Ji Qing. And this was just on the surface. There was no need to talk about those who were hiding their identities. His fiery eyes could see through all falsehood. At this moment, he frowned. Could it be that something was really going to happen? He felt that the energy aura of some people was very odd. They looked very ordinary on the surface, but he could see clearly with his fiery eyes that their bodies were like big fireballs and also like the sun. They were very resplendent and contained terrifying energy. After the auction entered a heated stage, Chu Feng found an opportunity to turn his back to them and give them a good opportunity to make a move. And in the dark, he held the treasure he had seized from the Origin Magnetic Sacred Physique, the Divine Magnetic Mountain Seal. He was ready to launch an attack at any moment. This item was exceptionally rare and precious. It was mainly made of divine magnetism, and at the same time, there was also a portion of magnetic marrow attached to it. To domain researchers, this was equivalent to the most incisive weapon. It could control and strengthen domains, and it could even strengthen Origin magnetic energy. He had long since laid down a large number of Origin magnetic stones on this ship and modified the hull. This was to prevent people from the outer realms from causing trouble. Heavens, it's actually a deity relic! Someone cried out in surprise. The auction had entered a climax. The essence bone bead left behind by the fallen saint of the deity race was called the deity relic. It was actually taken out for auction. It's a pity that the essence within this deity's relic has long since been absorbed. It's not very useful to us, but to the deity race, it has great commemorative significance. This is because deity relics are usually left behind by peerless saints after they fall. At this moment, the Black Yak opened his mouth and said, "This broken bead is useless. We found it on the corpse of an old man from the deity race when we were cleaning up the battlefield. It's just a souvenir. Who wants to bid? It's very cheap. The starting price is only 8 six-path reincarnation pills." Everyone was speechless and secretly cursed him for being too black-hearted. They knew that this was the starting price prepared to cheat the deity race. The Black Yak said, "Is there no one who wants it? That's too bad. Then let's consider it an unsold item. I'll embed it on my combat boots later. Such a shiny bead is so pretty." What did this have to do with being pretty? Everyone cursed silently. How many supreme saints could there be in a race since ancient times? The relic was equivalent to the corpse of that saint. How could an orthodoxy like the deity race tolerate such humiliation from a foreign race, especially from the descendants of opponents they had wiped out and conquered? I'll participate in the auction. In the end, someone from the deity race opened his mouth on the interstellar network and bid 8 six-path reincarnation pills. This was definitely an offer made through clenched teeth and spitting blood. This immediately caused a sensation. It was also at this moment that Chu Feng sensed 3 of the people behind him moving while everyone was in high spirits due to the auction. One of them approached Chu Feng silently like a hunter in the dark night. There were also people like the other bidders who displayed intense emotional fluctuations and shouted loudly. However, they had already inadvertently approached Chu Feng. There was also someone who accidentally spilled some of the red wine in his hand. He pretended to tidy up his appearance, but in reality, he had taken out a great killing weapon. It was a pile of violet heavenly thunder crystals, and he was about to blast it at Chu Feng. Buzz! In the blink of an eye, the big ship swayed. The domain runes were dense and isolated those people. A golden furnace appeared, all formed of golden runes, and it enveloped the three people within. Following which, they soared into the air in the blink of an eye. Along with the golden furnace, they stood towering in the sky far away from the big ship. The three people were stunned and their bodies froze. That was because they were trapped in the divine furnace constructed of domain runes and couldn't escape. The most terrifying thing was that one of the violet heavenly thunder crystals in one of their hands had exploded. Boom! The next moment there was a huge explosion in the sky. Ah! The three people cried out miserably because several violet heavenly thunder crystals had exploded one after another. They couldn't escape in the narrow domain golden furnace and were engulfed by the terrifying energy. Later on, the golden furnace also disintegrated. One could see how powerful the energy was. The three people were instantly turned into bloody fragments and dismembered corpses. They had all been killed by the explosion. What's going on? What happened? Many people cried out in alarm and chaos ensued. Great Demon Chu has attacked us. Everyone, quickly resist and let's escape together. Someone took advantage of the chaos to roar and bewitch people. Chu Feng understood that it was the other two people in the ball of fire he had his eyes on who were clamoring. They wanted to incite everyone to attack together. After all, there was still Ing Wudi, Yuan Shiqing, the immortal destiny physique, and a group of peerless young experts here. If they really fought to the death, they might be able to eliminate Chu Feng. Chu Feng opened his mouth and his voice shook the eastern sea. Everyone, don't panic. They're just a few small fries. They wanted to disrupt the auction, and now they want to take advantage of the chaos to stir up trouble. There's no need to be alarmed. Please sit properly, I'll take them down. Buzz. It was at this time that people noticed a fiery divine furnace appear. It enveloped a man and a woman and carried them high into the sky. At this moment, Chu Feng held the divine magnetic mountain seal in his hand. His expression was cold as he stared at the sky and said, "You're courting death." He used all his methods to refine the two people in the sky with his domain. The woman screamed miserably and turned into ashes on the spot. Everyone was overwhelmed with shock because they sensed that she was an expert at the Cloud Eater realm. In the end, she couldn't even hold on for a moment before being eliminated. For a moment, everyone was extremely afraid of Chu Feng. There was also a black-robed young man in the fiery furnace constructed from domain runes. At this moment, he raised his head and roared. A pair of black wings appeared on his back and flapped fiercely. Black mist surged into the sky, and he was like a fallen angel as he erupted with boundless might. He's close to the golden body realm. This person is so terrifying. That's... Someone was shocked when he saw the symbol on the black-robed man's sleeve. It was a pattern of a black spear piercing through the firmament. "Oh my God, he's a hunter from Sky Piercer!" someone shouted in shock. Once these words were spoken, everyone trembled and felt a chill run down their spine. Sky Piercer was an assassination organization in the universe. It was also an incomparably powerful and terrifying orthodoxy with a long history. Its members were all assassins and called themselves hunters. Normally, they would indirectly offer all kinds of rewards to assassinate targets in order to temper themselves. There was no one in the entire starry sky who didn't know how terrifying they were. That was because they even dared to accept missions to assassinate saints. They dared to kill saints. Moreover, they were able to succeed and behead Saint. This kind of battle record really terrified all the sections. Who wouldn't be afraid? Who wouldn't be afraid? Now they had their eyes on Chu Feng. Someone had come to kill him. Moreover, it seemed that this person was led by a seed-rank hunter. As expected, this person was incomparably powerful. He didn't die in the fiery furnace and was still resisting. He wanted to rush out and stared coldly at Chu Feng. However, after several attempts, he failed and couldn't break out. Then, he raised his hand and revealed a bronze tablet. He waved it in front of Chu Feng with the word, amnesty, written on it. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air. What does that mean? The big black yak didn't understand and couldn't help but ask. This is a seed-rank hunter from Skypiercer. That's a spirit tablet bestowed by the race's almighty. If they're captured, they can show this tablet and save their lives. Motherf ** Kerr, they came to assassinate us and still want to rely on a broken tablet to save their lives. What a big dream! The big black yak, Ouyang Feng, Old Donkey, and the others were all furious. The Almighty of Skypiercer is the most terrifying existence in the universe. They can hunt down quasi-saints and assassinate saints. Someone said in a low voice. Seeing this tablet should be considered as showing respect to the Almighty of Skypiercer. Someone said. At this moment, the seed-rank hunter who was trapped in the fiery furnace shook the bronze tablet in his hand again. His eyes were cold. Chapter 7:14. The fiery furnace glowed in the night sky. The hunter from Skypiercer was trapped inside. Unfortunately, he didn't match his identity and had become the prey instead. He held the bronze plate in his hand and didn't say a word. He continued to stare coldly at Chu Feng. He was trapped there and suffering the domain rune's suppression, but he didn't panic. On the contrary, he was indifferent as he stared intently at Chu Feng. You're still indifferent and silent. Are you forcing me? Chu Feng smiled, but it was a little cold. As for the big black yak, yellow ox, Ouyang Feng, and the others, their faces sank with anger. The most intuitive feeling they had was that this hunter was fearless. He came to assassinate, but he still had this attitude after being captured. The people from this organization were really insolent. Chu Feng made his move. As he held the divine magnetic mountain seal in his hand, it vibrated lightly. The runes on the big ship became increasingly concentrated, and all of them rushed up into the sky, merging into the fiery furnace. The hunter from the Skypiercer still didn't open his mouth. Even though he was trapped high up in the sky, his eyes were like knives as he looked down at Chu Feng fiercely. Furthermore, he raised the bronze plate high up and placed it in front of him as if he was warning and intimidating everyone in all directions. At this moment, the bronze plate turned dark red. Then, blood flowed out. This is the Skypiercer's bronze blood warning. If we let this person go, they can let bygones be bygones and terminate this mission. They won't plot to assassinate Chu Feng anymore. From then on, we'll go our separate ways, someone whispered. Big Black Yak asked, Oh, isn't this considered admitting defeat? I want to ask, if he doesn't try to assassinate Chu Feng after we let him go, what about the other members of the Skypiercer organization? I don't know. In any case, this seated contestant probably won't continue, someone said. Chu Feng sneered when he heard this kind of opinion and said, Skypiercer, what a tyrannical organization. A bronze plate bestowed by an almighty being can ask the assassin to let bygones be bygones after the assassination failed. Moreover, they still have to be grateful to their organization? Boom. It was at this moment that Chu Feng shook the divine magnetic mountain seal, and the red body of the furnace in the sky became glaring. The domain runes were astonishing, and the flames inside were raging. Moreover, a large hand appeared in the middle of the furnace, and one could see that it was moving towards the black wings on the young hunter's back. People were astonished to find that Chu Feng was holding a seal with one hand and moving with the other. The domain runes of the divine furnace in the sky were moving in sync with his movements. Bang! The young hunter was struggling, his body was burning and trembling. At the same time, the wings on his back were grabbed by someone. "Stop!" he shouted. "You finally spoke." Chu Feng sneered, but he remained unmoved. That hand continued to move, and in the end, the large hand in the fiery red furnace directly pulled at that pair of wings, about to pull them off. "Chu Feng, I've failed my mission this time. How about we call it a day? From now on, I'll never assassinate you again in this life." The young man's voice was very cold. Everyone revealed strange expressions. The people from the Skypiercer were getting more and more difficult to deal with. No one knew where their nest was, and this was one of the reasons why they could intimidate all the major evolutionary sections. Now, a seed-level expert was helpless against Chu Feng. His assassination had failed, and he had even admitted defeat. This was astonishing. Just when many people thought that Chu Feng might be moved, he indeed moved. However, only that hand was moving. With a puff, he forcibly tore off the black wings of the young man imprisoned in the furnace, and blood splattered everywhere. At this moment, the young hunter from the Skypiercer was like a fallen angel. He suddenly raised his head, and his black hair danced in the wind. His eyes were terrifying like black holes as he roared incessantly. "Chu Feng!" he roared angrily. Chu Feng responded coldly. He was incomparably calm as he said, "Who do you think you are? After coming to assassinate me, you still dare to put on such an attitude. I, your grandfather Chu, have even killed the saint of the deity race on the heavenly vine. Why would I be afraid of a creature like you who can't see the light and can only walk in the dark?" Many people cried out in surprise. No one had expected Chu Feng to be so straightforward and incomparably powerful. He directly tore off the wings of this hunter who was close to the golden Arhat level. They could see that the furnace was dripping with blood, and that young man was growling and snarling. His eyes were incomparably gloomy and cold as he stared at Chu Feng. The hand that was holding the bronze plate was clenched so tightly that it had already turned blue. At this moment, many people cried out in alarm, following which the Black Yak, the Manchurian Tiger, and Zhou Quan also reacted. That was because someone was looking at the photon computer. They moved closer and discovered the source of the problem. "There's an old man stirring up trouble." The Black Yak indicated to Chu Feng to look at the Origin Beast platform. At this moment, the starry skies weren't calm anymore. It was completely shaken. When the Skypiercer made a move, which time wasn't there a rain of blood and foul winds. It made every race apprehensive. The number of saints they had killed wasn't just one or two, and it represented blood-red terror. Some people said that they were even more terrifying than the 10 greats from before because you would never know when they would appear and give you a fatal blow. At this moment, there was a terrifying person making comments on the Origin Beast platform. This was an old man whose entire body was covered in a black robe. His face wasn't revealed, and the Skypiercer's insignia was embedded on his sleeves. A black spear pierced through the firmament. Other than that, there was a golden moon on his sleeves. It was very curved and dripping with blood. This represented his identity, the quasi-saint of the Skypiercer. "Chu Feng, I'll give you one last chance. Let go of the person from my Skypiercer. He has failed his mission this time and will never assassinate you again from now on." A quasi-saint dark hunter would make even saints apprehensive and incomparably fearful. That was because they didn't act according to common sense and would never fight head-on, making it impossible to guard against them. He has failed. What about the others from your organization? Will they come again? Asked the Black Yak. Meanwhile, Chu Feng was very calm and didn't speak. The quasi-saint dark hunter responded indifferently and said, If there are still people offering a bounty and the price is high enough, the others from my organization can accept the mission. I won't give you any promises here. Heh heh. Chu Feng was laughing. His words were full of coldness. He didn't say anything and directly began to attack. That was because this organization was too arrogant and tyrannical. They actually dared to say such things to him. Within the red furnace, the large hand formed from domain runes was moving. It tore apart the young assassin's arm, causing blood to splatter everywhere. At the same time, the falling black feather was burned by the furnace and turned into ashes. Ah! The young man howled within the red furnace. At this moment, his right arm had been torn off. His face was incomparably pale, and for the first time, he revealed a panicked expression. However, his bones were indeed very hard. He still didn't beg for mercy. Chu Feng, you're going against the good intentions of a dark saint. You must die. At this moment, the old man on the Origin Beast platform said coldly, "You're nothing." This was Chu Feng's response. In a split second, the entire Origin Beast platform flared up. Countless people were watching. They were all greatly moved to see that Chu Feng dared to unyieldingly contradict a dark saint from the Skypiercer. How many of them would dare to be so unyielding? They would definitely be incomparably fearful when encountering such a thing. Chu Feng, I'll give you one last chance. Let him go and I can let you die with dignity, the old man shrouded in a black robe said coldly on the Origin Beast platform. Obviously, he was very fond of this seed-rank hunter, and was still trying to carry out a final rescue. Of course, he also knew that it was impossible for Chu Feng to change his mind. Therefore, his conditions were very harsh. At this moment, the Dark Saint was actually very conflicted. You're long-winded. Also, you're sick. This was Chu Feng's response. He didn't care in the slightest and didn't give the Dark Saint any face. The old man shrouded in a black robe said coldly, "From now on, no one will entrust the Skypiercer to kill you. We'll hunt you down until your body and soul are completely destroyed. This is a promise." All the guests trembled as they paid attention to the Origin Beast platform and looked at Chu Feng. A demon was going up against a terrifying orthodoxy. This was going to be interesting. Skypiercer, who do you think you are? You, Chu Feng, dared to fight against evolvers all over the sky. In one battle, I annihilated the alliance formed by hundreds of evolver sects and killed over 9,000 experts. Why would I be afraid of an organization that can't see the light of day? So what if I add you to the mix? Chu Feng was disdainful. He challenged them directly with coldness and arrogance. On the Origin Beast platform, the Dark Saint's gaze was cold. Everyone was horrified. It was as though they could feel the boundless killing intent through the interstellar network. Your grandpa Chu Feng even annihilated the deity race, the Shilin clan, and the Netherworld race. What is there to be arrogant about your Skypiercer? You're just rats hiding in a cave and can't see the light of day. If you dare to provoke me, I'll annihilate you all. Such a domineering declaration shocked everyone. As expected of the great demon Chu. He's not even afraid of the Skypiercer. Amazing! This is very Chu Feng. Many people sighed. Now, I'll add another auction item. A seed-level killer from the Skypiercer. Who wants it? Shouted Chu Feng. What's the base price? Asked the Black Yak. 1,000 six-path reincarnation pills and 1,000 drops of hellish ant elixir. Chu Feng said calmly. Everyone understood that he was humiliating the Skypiercer. This was a declaration that he dared to auction off a seed-level contestant from the Skypiercer. What was there to fear? He was going to fight to the death. Chu Feng, you're very stupid. Even a god can't save you, said the Dark Saint coldly. Boom. Chu Feng activated the red furnace and let out a blood-curdling screech. The wingless young man who was like a fallen angel struggled mournfully, but it was useless. He was burned, broken inch by inch in the raging flames, and turned into charcoal. It was as if doomsday was being judged. This man died tragically in the sky, and everything came to an end when the furnace finally disintegrated. Chu Feng, you've provoked someone you shouldn't have. We're kings and saints who walk in the darkness. You're finished, said the old man whose entire body was covered in darkness angrily. I also want to tell you guys that you've provoked someone you shouldn't have. Kings and saints of darkness are nothing. Your grandpa Chu is the ancestor of darkness. Do you guys think you're very strong in assassination? Your grandpa Chu, can still wipe out people from all walks of life by myself. My actions are more efficient than yours. Otherwise, there wouldn't be this grand auction. Look at you guys. You're just hiding in a cave and can't see the light. What great things can you accomplish? This was undisguised humiliation and mockery. Following that, Chu Feng shouted again, "Tonight, whoever wins the auction must give me a piece of information about the Sky Piercer in addition to the cosmic dollars they originally received. I'm going to destroy them." He added, "Deity race, you guys have to set an example. Since your inheritance is so long, you guys should know more. If you give me the information, I'll give you a discount and charge you one less six-path reincarnation pill. Yes, other people also have this discount. Otherwise, with the deity race as an example, don't even think about getting that deity relic. I'll throw it into the latrine. If other organizations don't cooperate, I'll chop up your saints one by one." In a split second, the entire starry sky was momentarily silent. This guy was truly a terrifying demon. At this moment, many people truly believed that he was even more terrifying than the people from the Sky Piercer. He wants to mobilize the power of every race. He wants to drag out the Sky Piercer and then target them to the end. Someone whispered. Chapter 7:15. Chu Feng was targeting the Sky Piercer. He wanted to single-handedly challenge this hunting organization that walked in the darkness and shake the starry skies against this colossus. His performance was extremely powerful. He was completely unafraid of the Dark Saint's threat and gave the most direct response. He refined a seed-rank hunter from this orthodoxy in front of everyone. At the same time, many people realized that he was kidnapping deities, celestials, netherworld races, and other races. This night was destined to be restless. Chu Feng challenged a terrifying assassin's palace. His declaration and behavior moved many people, and they remained silent for a long time. Ignorant native of Earth, you don't know anything. You will regret not respecting the kings and saints of the Dark Realm. The consequences you will face will be very miserable. Sometimes you will find that this kind of misery is 10 times or even 100 times more terrifying than death. The quasi-saint Dark Hunter's hoarse demonic voice came from behind the black robe. Then, his black hole-like eyes swept across and ended the conversation. Chu Feng replied, "I have some words for you. Choosing the wrong opponent will be the sorrow of your life. The so-called Sky Piercer is destined to fall apart, and the so-called divine land of killers and holy lands will be annihilated in the end." The Dark Saint didn't reply and decisively disappeared from the Origin Beast platform, leaving behind a string of bone-chilling cold laughter. He left with a look of disdain and contempt. As he saw it, Chu Feng was too weak. Not to mention threatening their ancient orthodoxy that had existed for countless years. Even if they were to casually dispatch a Golden Arhut-level hunter, they could easily annihilate Chu Feng. In reality, from the perspective of everyone in the starry skies, Chu Feng was walking on a tightrope. It was fine if he hadn't left Earth, but once he did, he would face endless dark hunters. No matter how strong he was, could he avoid one accident after another? Assassins were the most terrifying. They didn't compete with you in terms of true strength and would deliver a fatal blow at the critical moment. This matter caused a huge uproar on the Origin Beast platform, and all races were in heated discussion. The storm was fermenting and engulfing all the major platforms. Many evolutionary sects were already aware of this, and even many veteran experts revealed strange expressions. They felt that Chu Feng was too crazy. For so many years, no one had ever dared to challenge the Skypiercer on their own because that would be courting death. An organization that could even kill saints, how terrifying was that? They were a colossus. The most frightening thing was that it was rumored that there was a heaven illuminator behind the organization, and it was likely to be an extremely ancient existence. This was also the reason why all races were afraid. Once an ancient heaven illuminator rose in revolt, it would be unimaginable. Of course, this was only a guess. No one could confirm whether there was such an evolver behind them. It was to the extent that conspiracy theorists believed that this was the dark side of one of the 10 Greats, a hunting organization that they had supported. There were also people who said that the organization was another business department of the behemoth known as the Wormhole Express Company. Of course, there were also people who said that it was a branch of a superstar sect in the broken universe in the primal chaos. In fact, the more they knew the dark organization, the more they understood. For so many years, no dynasty or powerful race had been able to uproot them. This already explained the problem. After such a ruckus, the atmosphere of the auction was somewhat strange and subtle. Although many people thought that Chu Feng was very valiant and powerful, there were also some who felt that his prospects weren't good. Offending the Skypiercer might be a dead end. Everyone, I need your immediate feedback. I want news about the Skypiercer. When the auction was halfway through, Chu Feng spoke and urged the people participating in the auction. Of course, this was a private message. The Black Yak even threatened them one by one. If they didn't decisively send back valuable information, he would stab their living saint children on the spot. Then, Old Donkey put on an act and tidied up his formal attire. He was in charge of contacting the deity race privately and said with a solemn expression, hee-haw, respected deity race buyer, your goods have been packed and will soon be sent to the Skypiercer Express Company. Please pay immediately tonight and provide details about the Skypiercer. Otherwise, the delivery will be terminated and it will be discarded into the latrine as defective goods. We attach great importance to the quality of the goods and the user. Please cooperate, thank you. The old man in charge of the auction from the deity race stared at Old Donkey through the interstellar network. If he could make a move, he would strangle this donkey. No matter what, they wouldn't allow the deity relic to be disgraced. At this moment, the Manchurian Tiger, Ouyang Feng, and Zhou Quan weren't idle either. They were in charge of contacting the Shilin clan, Damring Pure Land, and Netherworld race. For a moment, an undercurrent was surging. The silver-haired Lolita Ing Xiaoxiao moved closer to Chu Feng and said, "You've encountered big trouble. The Skypiercer is very savage and the waters behind it are very deep. Under normal circumstances, even our quasi-saint race wouldn't easily make a move against them." Ing Zhixian also came over. She was 120 worried about her younger sister. This little fellow's words often shocked the world and caused trouble for both her older sister and brother. She was really worried about her. Chu Feng nodded slightly at them in greeting. He naturally understood how terrifying this colossus from the dark realm was. Even if he didn't understand it in the past, he could deduce it from their words and actions today. These hunters who walked in the darkness were incomparably conceited and even overly domineering. After being captured, a dark saint actually appeared and directly ordered him to release them. How tyrannical was this? They had an attitude of supremacy and an oppressive aura assaulted him head-on. Ever since Chu Feng embarked on the path of evolution, he had never knelt before. How could he tolerate a dark organization bossing him around and giving him such a domineering order? Even if the Skypiercer was very terrifying, it didn't matter to Chu Feng. He had even offended the Ten Greats, so why would he be afraid of an assassin organization that was eyeing him? Bring it on. If you're not satisfied, then fight. At this time, Yuan Shicheng also walked over. As the #1 person of the Origin Demon race's younger generation, his identity and background were naturally extremely shocking and attracted the attention of everyone. His younger sister, the 10th most beautiful woman under the starry skies, Yuan, also followed. She had a charming smile on her face, and her black dress made her snow-white skin seem even more sparkling and translucent. Do you need us to step in and help you talk some peace? Yuan Shicheng was a fine-looking man with his own bearing and a gentle smile. He came from the Origin Demon race, but he didn't emit any demonic nature. He was an elegant and fine young master with a face like jade. Needless to say, Yuan had a graceful figure and moving curve. She was enchanting and breathtaking, and her charm was natural. She smiled faintly and said, "We can help you resolve it." This was naturally roping Chu Feng in. They had taken a fancy to Chu Feng's potential. Chu Feng's recent performance had long since attracted the attention of the Ten Greats. He could suppress someone with the myriad star physique, and capture someone with the innocuous divine physique and the Origin magnetic sacred physique alive. It was impossible for the orthodoxies not to be shaken. The divine physique, sacred physique, and myriad star physique were invincible physiques in normal times. They possessed unrivaled bloodlines, and any one of them would become an overlord when they were born. But in this era they were in the same era, yet they were suppressed by Chu Feng in the end. Such a comparison was too shocking. So much so that some people had already asserted that Chu Feng might be another invincible character under the starry skies on this ancient planet after Yao Yao. He was an evildoer who could look down on many eras, and once he matured, it would be difficult to meet his match. This was also the reason why the deity race and the Shilin clan didn't hesitate to join forces with many evolutionary sects to kill Chu Feng. They were worried. Chu Feng expressed his gratitude for their goodwill, but he absolutely wouldn't kneel to the Skypiercer. If they weren't satisfied, then they could fight. It wasn't a big deal. Not long after, Yuan's expression became somewhat unnatural. Not long ago, she had tried to contact the Skypiercer, but now she had received feedback that this darkness obstructed her proposal and clearly told her that Chu Feng must be killed. Even if Chu Feng were to pay the price of blood and kneel on the ground to beg for forgiveness, he still wouldn't be forgiven. He has offended our dignity. This was the Skypiercer's response. Chu Feng smiled, but it was somewhat cold. He clearly told Yuan and Yuan Shicheng not to say anything more. He didn't need them to pull strings. Offend their dignity? Next, I'll stomp their faces into the ground and ruthlessly crush them, Chu Feng said calmly. In fact, he knew that the Origin Demon race had probably guessed this result. They just wanted to sell him a favor and let him know that they had pulled strings for him. Chu Feng, I just learned how terrifying this dark organization is through the discussions of others. This is an assassin organization that has existed in the starry sky since ancient times. It's best that you don't leave Earth rashly. Jiang Luoshan walked over and suggested this to him. She clearly revealed a trace of worry. Vajra and Silver Wing also appeared. They also believed that staying on Earth, which hadn't been unsealed, was the safest. Chu Feng smiled. He himself wasn't worried. In the distance, many evolvers saw him so calm and sighed inwardly. This person's heart was really big. If it were someone else, they would have long since been filled with worry. Chu Feng, there's important news. At this moment, the old Lama secretly transmitted his voice. One of the evolutionary sects he was in charge of had actually sent them an extremely shocking piece of news. This news came from the Pegasus race. They had requested again and again that it must be kept secret and that they couldn't be exposed. Even if they were told that they were the ones who provided it, they wouldn't admit it. Some races were extremely hostile toward the Skypiercer because they had been assassinated before. For example, the Pegasus race possessed quasi-divine beast blood and was known as one of the races with the fastest speed in the universe. Decades ago, a quasi-saint from this race was famous for his research on the speed of time. He dominated his peers and was on the verge of becoming a saint, but in the end, he was killed by the Skypiercer. There were still a few similar cases, so these races wanted to provide information to Chu Feng. They were prepared to sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight. If this news is true, then it's not simple. The big black yak also came over and whispered. That was because the Pegasus race's information was that the Skypiercer had already entered Earth and was going to build a branch. They valued this recovering ancient planet very much. This dark organization believed that even if this planet couldn't be dominated by the natives, it would certainly shine brilliantly in the hands of the major evolutionary sects in the outer realms and become an important place. Therefore, they also wanted to participate and secretly control a famed mountain. They would build a youth training camp here and nurture the younger generation of hunters so that they could evolve and grow together with this planet. Mount Wangu. Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. This organization was very powerful and valued this famous heavenly paradise. However, they did it very covertly. They secretly supported a power that could stand in the light, and the assassin youth training camp was hidden in the depths of the heavenly paradise. The old Lama informed, "Those people from the Skypiercer have already entered Earth and are building a branch. The personnel are already in place." This was the most crucial information. A group of dark hunters was on Earth. Chu Feng smiled very brilliantly. It was really like someone delivering a pillow just when he was dozing off. He really wanted to immediately attack this organization with boundless killing intent. He hoped to destroy one of their branches as soon as possible. Now, he unexpectedly found out that this group of people had already arrived. Moreover, there were many people in the youth training camp. All of them were hunters with great potential. They wanted to grow together with this recovering planet and were a group of people that were focused on nurturing. "I'll take action overnight. I'll directly challenge them and then announce to the public that the deity race told me the news," said Chu Feng. "That's what we should do. We'll let the deity race take the blame and return the favor to the Pegasus race. The Pegasus race really hates the Skypiercer to the bone and has been watching them for decades. Earth is special. All the evolutionary sects are at the same starting line and have just entered. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to discover this dark organization." When the auction was once again at its most heated stage, Chu Feng quietly left and didn't let anyone follow him. He wanted to sweep through a Skypiercer branch alone. It was also on this night that the organization, the Skypiercer, announced to the public on the official platform through which they accepted business that Chu Feng was wanted in the entire universe and that they were about to launch a crazy hunting operation. They announced to the public that even if Chu Feng were to kneel at their feet now, he would still die without any dignity. They wouldn't give him any chance and had already written his name on the death ledger with a red judge's pen until he died tragically. At this moment, Chu Feng had already set off on his journey alone with a long blade on his back. He crossed the eastern sea and ran thousands of miles under the moonlit night. He arrived on land at lightning speed and headed straight for Mount Wangu. Chapter 7:16. The moonlight was like water. Chu Feng wasn't far away. After the upheaval, the earth had become incomparably vast and its surface area had increased rapidly. But with his current speed, it wasn't a big deal. Especially since he had the green bamboo boat as a means of transportation. He quickly crossed the sea and entered the depths of the land, approaching Mount Wangu. Something big was bound to happen tonight. The moonlight shone on the mountain forest, covering the entire mountain range in silver splendor. The high mountains, waterfalls, and great rivers all had a hazy halo and appeared divine. Mount Wangu was in sight. Since ancient times there had been many legends about this place. It was known as the first heavenly paradise. Late at night, the mountain forest wasn't tranquil. Wild beasts were howling and strange beasts from folded space were snarling. One could see a bird of prey spreading its wings like a black cloud, blotting out the starlight and casting a large shadow on the ground. This was a primitive landscape. Mount Wangu had merged with the folded space, and was no longer the same as before. Chu Feng had arrived in the middle of the night with a cold, murderous intent on his face. He held a large banner in his right hand that emitted a misty bloody light. It was incomparably bewitching. It was the divine blood banner. This was a great killing weapon. Tonight, he didn't come to chat and laugh, but to start a massacre and suppress the branch established by the so-called Dark Hegemon. He didn't care about the Sky Piercer. Since they were already opposing each other, he would fight to the end and kill. In Chu Feng's mind, the other party had already declared war against him. Therefore, he wouldn't show any mercy. He would go all out and use all methods to kill the other party. At this time, even if he came alone, he would still regard this battle as a war. This was a battle between one man and a dark orthodoxy. In the night, his killing intent was restrained as he strode forward in the mountain forest without making a sound. He was like a ferocious tiger in charge of killing in the primordial era, about to begin hunting in the heavens. Chu Feng was tall and had the appearance of an adult. His long black hair hung loosely over his shoulders, and his eyes were abstruse. All of the killing intent was hidden in the depths of his eyes. He didn't want to alarm the troops of this dark orthodoxy's branch in advance. He wanted to approach like a hunter and use their methods to slaughter and exterminate the youth training camp and the veteran assassins here. On Mount Wangu there were spiritual peaks one after another. Purple mist rose, and there was a faint aura of a hidden dragon rising to the heavens. Standing on this piece of land, looking at the place that was full of brilliant lights and shockingly dense energy, Chu Feng narrowed his eyes, carefully listening and sensing. In the distance, ferocious birds and ferocious beasts roared. There was a tens of meters long demonic ape standing on a mountain and roaring at the moon. There were also silver ferocious birds killing mammoths in the folded space. Deep in the night, this heavenly paradise was very hazy but also very holy. However, the mountain forest also carried the smell of blood. This was very good. It was beneficial for Chu Feng to get close, and it would be convenient for him to assassinate and sweep through this place. He entered the restricted area of Mount Wangu and was slightly lost in thought. Back then, when the world began to change, this place was attacked by the Master of Bio Palace, one of the 3 great mutant organizations. After that, Chu Feng didn't pay attention to it anymore. He didn't know what happened after the killer organization took over here. In addition, there was a secret realm on Mount Wangu where the ancient remnant races lived. However, even if the people from Sky Piercer rushed here, they wouldn't necessarily dare to enter the secret realm. After all, the world hadn't completely recovered, and it was very difficult for people at the Golden Arhat realm to enter. There were most likely experts of that level in the secret realm. Chu Feng searched for a long time, but he couldn't find the entrance to the secret realm. "I hope the people in the secret realm are fine," he muttered to himself. After all, when he fought with the divine Son of Heaven in Kunlun, the remnant races of Mount Wangu and the Himalayas had stood on his side and helped him. Under the moonlight, Chu Feng was like a lone wolf with a chilly aura. He barged into this area alone and entered the restricted area of Mount Wangu. Very soon, he saw some skeletons that belonged to humans. He didn't know how many months they had been dead. His gaze trembled. The clothes and relics on the skeletons all proved that these were native evolvers, humans born on Earth. The people from Bio Palace have all been annihilated. Chu Feng made this judgment because there were some communication devices among the relics that belonged to the three mutant organizations. In the depths of Mount Wangu was a vast mountain with ancient trees and a silver waterfall hanging down. It was extremely magnificent under the moonlight, yet it didn't lose its elegance. He saw houses and human figures. They were definitely not native evolvers from the outer realm because they had bat-like wings. This was a branch of the winged race, and could be considered a very strong race. They had wings made of flesh, and when they spread them, they could soar into the sky and burrow into the earth. Moreover, their bodies were powerful, and they liked to tear evolvers of the same level apart in battle. It's the winged race's silver wing branch. Chu Feng gradually understood the races in the universe and recognized their identity. Comparatively speaking, the Silver Wing branch's reputation wasn't bad. They weren't bloodthirsty, but their combat strength was very strong. Once they were angered, they wouldn't rest until the opponent was dead. As expected, they found a race that can stand in the light to cover for us. Chu Feng was seething with killing intent. Since this Silver Wing branch was standing together with Skypiercer, and could be considered an external force, there was nothing to be apprehensive about. He would kill them all the same. However, he didn't attack immediately. His main target was that group of dark hunters. Chu Feng moved forward like an experienced lone wolf. He traversed the mountain forest and avoided this group of people. The divine blood banner in his hand was emitting a terrifying aura. In the depths of Mount Wangu, the energy density was extremely shocking. As expected, there was something strange about it. A domain had been laid down, and there were ghost-like figures hiding in the darkness. Their breathing technique was very special. It was as though they had condensed into one with the mountains and rivers. Nothing could be seen on the surface, but there were sun-like balls of light within their bodies. Ordinary people couldn't sense their true strength because they could conceal themselves very well. Apparently, the heavenly horse race didn't lie. The information was reliable and true. There was indeed a group of Skypiercer troops hiding here. Chu Feng circulated the robbery induction breathing technique and closed his body's vitality. He stared at them and also merged into the darkness. He roamed about here and was looking for the strongest expert here. The divine blood banner was prepared for that person. Otherwise, he wouldn't expose this weapon so easily under normal circumstances. Even with Chu Feng's rare divine instincts on Earth, he had to observe for a long time before he sensed a wave that was so weak that it was almost non-existent. Only after a long time did he discover an old man lying in seclusion in the forest. He didn't attack. He frowned and sensed again. Before long, he discovered two existences with astonishing strength similar to that old man. There were 3 veteran killers close to the Golden Arhat realm. Moreover, they far surpassed the others at this level. The energy flames within their bodies were actually incomparably vigorous. It was just that they didn't leak out. As expected, Skypiercer attached great importance to this place and was about to make a big move. After that, Chu Feng silently began to put down magnetic stones in the distant mountain forest. He was laying down a domain and wasn't prepared to let a single one of them escape. Time was of the essence. He didn't have the time to lay down a complex large-scale domain, but it was enough to stop these people. Apart from the 3 old men, there were 70 to 80 people. Most of them were young with astonishing talent. All of them were good saplings. It was obvious that the young hunters who could come to the land of recovery were elites valued by Skypiercer. They were given the opportunity to rapidly evolve here. That was because Earth was very special. It was currently recovering and was a treasure land in the eyes of the young evolvers of various races. I'll send you on your way. Finally, Chu Feng moved. He was like a specter as he soundlessly approached the location of an old man. After that, he suddenly launched an attack. In his hands, the divine blood banner was used as a spear. He let the banner flutter as he held it with both hands and stabbed toward that target. It had to be said that the veteran hunter dispatched by Skypiercer was too powerful and incomparably sharp. He actually sensed Chu Feng's aura at the critical moment and quickly evaded. The main reason was because he was a hunter who walked in the darkness. He was most proficient in various methods in the field of assassination and had detected it on the spot. At the same time, his own strength was really too outstanding. He could be considered one of the Skypiercer's gold medal old masters at the Transformation Realm who had specially come here to build a youth training camp. He had evaded this fatal attack by a hair's breadth, which greatly surprised Chu Feng. However, Chu Feng had long since been prepared. He used one of his strongest methods. A stone cave appeared on his left hand and formed a terrifying black vortex that almost sucked the old man in. This was because Chu Feng had a contingency plan and had judged the direction in which the old man would evade in advance. He followed up the instant his attack missed. The old assassin's expression changed, and a divine radiance erupted from his gloomy and cold eyes. He was like a giant rock that wanted to fly into the sky and escape first. However, that stone cave was really too terrifying. It affected his speed and created an excellent opportunity for Chu Feng. The divine blood banner in Chu Feng's hand swept over and the fluttering banner directly covered that area. One had to know that this wasn't a real spear but a terrifying banner. The old man was horrified. The blood banner had just approached and all the essence and blood in his body had evaporated. It was too terrifying. Bang! The next moment, his whole body erupted with light and all kinds of trump cards were unleashed. However, many of his weapons were swallowed by that stone cave and were meaningless. The banner's surface covered him and caused him to wither all of a sudden. His blood and chi frantically poured out as he couldn't withstand this kind of devouring. Bang! At the same time, Chu Feng used his spiritual energy to activate the divine blood banner while his right hand used the Yang realm's divine technique. Lightning fist. A burst of energy boiled and light erupted. The old assassin's body was pierced and covered by the blood banner. In an instant, he shriveled up and let out a mournful howl. He exploded with a bang and died a violent death. With a swoosh, Chu Feng put away the divine blood banner and exchanged it for the reincarnation blade. He pounced in another direction as if he was flying to kill his second target. However, he was very dissatisfied. When he killed the first person, he actually didn't kill him in one strike and instead alerted the enemy. However, he wasn't afraid. He had just successfully crossed the tribulation and his strength had greatly improved. It was time to test himself. A sharp whistling sound rang out and the entire area churned. All the assassins came out to search for the intruder. Bang! When those people found out, Chu Feng was already fighting with the second old man. The battle was fierce and the terrifying scarlet blade light tore apart the tranquility of the night. The third powerful old assassin was naturally alarmed and rushed to the rescue at lightning speed. He turned into a black light and pounced over. He wanted to besiege and kill Chu Feng together. At the same time, the others finally saw Chu Feng. Even if they were assassins and ruthless people who knew how to control their emotions, there were still some young hunters who were shocked and even cried out. "It's actually him, Chu Feng." They couldn't help but be shocked. Not long ago, Chu Feng annihilated the seed-level hunters of their organization in the East Sea and even angrily rebuked the Dark Saint. Moreover, there was an order coming from the starry sky. They were told to lay low and wait for orders. They were to wait for reinforcements at any time and hunt down Chu Feng together. How could they have imagined that in such a short time, Chu Feng would sneak here without anyone knowing and take the initiative to launch an attack on them? And all of this happened on the same night. Kill. At this moment, Chu Feng broke out and went all out. Since there was no need to hide, his aura was as turbulent as the sea. His blood and chi were boiling like volcanic magma, violently sweeping out. The lightning fist cut through the sky. The light of the samsara blade seemed to make heaven and earth fall silent. Puff! An old man's head flew into the air, and his corpse lay on the ground. A group of people who had rushed up to assassinate Chu Feng also fell to the ground. Heads flew out one after the other, and blood splattered in all directions. The commotion here was so great that the entire Mount Wangu was alarmed. Under the night moon, Chu Feng was like a great devil, extremely cold. The blade light was dazzling, and the fist print was magnificent and majestic, killing in all directions. He rushed all the way, and corpses appeared under his feet one after another. Blood splattered everywhere. Those who were cut by the samsara blade melted in a short time, and those who were hit by the fist print were torn apart, their body parts flying everywhere. Chapter 7:17. This group of dark hunters was being hunted down. This was a one-sided massacre. The stench of blood in the forest was pungent as corpses fell one after another. Chu Feng moved like a bolt of lightning. Wherever he passed, these killers were harvested like crops. There were no living souls under the reincarnation blade, and no complete corpses before the lightning fist. Ah! Miserable screams rose and fell one after another. Chu Feng's killing methods were too terrifying as he pushed his way through. The Sky-Piercer's earth branch suffered a destructive blow at this moment. Chu Feng, Demon Chu. Behind him, the old man with disheveled hair chased after him with all his might. However, he couldn't keep up with Chu Feng's speed and could only see his afterimage. Chu Feng moved unhindered in this area, constantly sweeping across and killing in all directions. Even though these people were killers who walked in the dark all year round, they were still terrified. They had never seen such a demonic person. A dark red long blade burst forth with blade light. It was incomparably magnificent and penetrated the heavens and the earth. As it swept across, there were bound to be people cut into two and sent flying. The demon's fist was even more terrifying with vigorous energy. Under this fist, those so-called young elites, even the outstanding ones who had advanced to the Cloud Eater realm, were shaken to the point of spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. Their arms were broken and their bodies were cracked, leaving bloody scars all over. Bang! Under the lightning fist, another young expert was torn into pieces and sent flying in all directions, bringing with it a large rain of blood. The bright moon hung high in the sky and its silver splendor sprinkled down. The entire mountainous area was very gentle, as if it was covered by a thin layer of smoke. However, the stench of blood was too pungent and destroyed the plain and misty scenery and mood. Chu Feng, you will pay the price in blood for this. Death is not your end. You will sink into the darkness, suffer boundless pain, and struggle in the torment of time. A middle-aged killer cursed because he was in complete despair. When Chu Feng chopped off his arm, he saved himself by chopping off his shoulder. In the end, his chest was penetrated by Chu Feng's fist. His body cracked like porcelain and was on the verge of disintegration. As expected, after he roared angrily, he no longer existed with a pop. Under the moonlight, the silver waterfalls, green pines, and small streams were originally harmonious and tranquil, beautiful and full of a holy aura, but now everything had changed. Even though they were assassins who spent most of their time in the dark, when they saw how domineering Chu Feng was, and how he was like a devilish god, drenched in their blood and taking their lives, they were terrified. Some of them even began to tremble. Who were the darkness hunters? Who were the race that was proficient in assassination? Now everything was reversed. They had already received orders and understood the latest situation. The person who was to be assassinated and beheaded by them killed his way over that very night. He plowed through the enemy's nest and slaughtered them. It was simply unimaginable. There were a total of 3 old gold medal instructors. In the end, 2 of them were killed by Chu Feng the moment they came up. One had to know that they were close to the golden body level. As for the others, they weren't a match at all. 6 of those middle-aged instructors had already died, and they were practically exterminated. As for the young elites, disciples who were considered to have great potential and talent, more than 60 of them had died in such a short period of time. They were slaughtered by Chu Feng almost as soon as they met face to face. They were violently killed. At this time, Chu Feng had become a true devilish god. The scarlet spots on his body were all the blood of his enemies. As long as he attacked, he would take their lives and wipe out this assassin organization's branch. A young assassin collapsed. He was 16 or 17 years old with great potential and astonishing talent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been sent to this recovering planet. On this night, he saw Chu Feng's monstrous murderous aura. He saw the indifference and ruthlessness in his eyes, and he also witnessed his iron-blooded methods. At this moment, a few youths threw down their weapons and turned to flee. They howled as their beliefs collapsed. They were once proud hunters, but today, they had actually been reduced to cattle and sheep. They were being slaughtered at will and had no power to resist. This made these youths despair. The expressions of the others changed. From the beginning until now, even if they couldn't defeat Chu Feng, these people were still lying in ambush and looking for opportunities to assassinate him. But now, some of them were terrified. Their reactions were really different from their usual training. Chu Feng, hand over your life, roared the gold medal old instructor. He was bristling with anger. He was an assassin, so he was supposed to hide in the dark and give the enemy a fatal blow. But now, he couldn't calm down. His grandson had died under Chu Feng's blade. He had been chasing from behind, but he couldn't keep up with his opponent's speed. Those who kill will always be killed. This was Chu Feng's response. Since this group of cold-blooded assassins had received orders to target him and his friends, then there was nothing more to say. They had to be slaughtered and beheaded cleanly. Bang! A blade light soared like thunder. The sound was terrifying and the light was glaring. It was as if the firmament had been split open. At this moment, Chu Feng was facing the old man and killing his way over. During this process, a few more people lost their lives. Some of their heads flew into the air, while others were sliced in half. They fell to the ground while carrying large amounts of blood, and then they melted. In reality, Skypiercer's troops exceeded Chu Feng's expectations. There weren't 70 or 80 people. There was actually a group of troops that had killed their way out of the underground palace. There were more than 150 people in total. The blade and rapier attacked the other party at the same time. Chu Feng encountered this old man. He had killed almost all the people in the vicinity, so he fixed his eyes on the last gold medal old instructor who was still a threat. Chi. The old man attacked craftily. His sword chi surged like a viper attacking. From time to time, he would give a fatal kiss. Moreover, he kept disappearing and hiding in the void. He had many assassination methods that emerged in an endless stream. He was a ruthless character that was very difficult to deal with. There was no doubt that this person had too much experience in the domain of the killing Tao. He was an executioner who specialized in killing or living for the sake of killing. If he was on the battlefield and in the midst of an army of 10,000, perhaps his performance would be average. But in a one-on-one situation, the energy he released was dangerous and incomparably terrifying. Unfortunately, he had encountered Chu Feng. Regardless of whether it was a one-on-one battle or a group battle, Chu Feng's current strength was frighteningly shocking. Clang! He cut off the other party's rapier and soared into the sky like a flood dragon. He slashed out dozens of times in succession, forcing the old man to dodge quickly. He disappeared in the void several times. Die! However, following Chu Feng's final shout, He slashed out hundreds of times in one breath. Blood dripped from the space between the old man's brows and cracks appeared. His body was densely packed like a spider web and was covered in fine, blood-colored lines. In the end, fresh blood seeped out and spread from all the fine red lines. This time, the old man was slashed dozens of times. His entire body suddenly disintegrated and fell down. After Chu Feng shouted, he didn't even look at him again. He immediately turned around and charged into the crowd. This was a night of bloodshed. In this battle, more than 150 hunters from Skypiercer were all lying dead. Half of them died under the reincarnation blade without even leaving a corpse behind. The other half had broken limbs and were drenched in blood as they lay on the ground. They had exploded from the lightning fist. One had to know that there were some ruthless characters among them. They belonged to the gold medal old instructors and seated characters, but they had all been annihilated. This dark organization's branch on Earth had been wiped out by Chu Feng in a short period of time. The main reason was related to the domains he had laid down. These people couldn't escape. Not far away, the silver-winged race members were trembling in fear. They belonged to a peripheral organization and couldn't be considered a direct descendant. After witnessing this battle with their own eyes, they felt a chill run down their spines. Chu Feng raised his blade and walked over step by step under the moonlight. His hair was disheveled, and his whole body was drenched and stained with blood. It was all the enemy's blood. Boom! The lightning fist filled the sky as he began a massacre once again. He had also laid down a domain in this area to block off the silver-winged race's possibility of escape. These people were all trapped in this mountain forest. In the end, this group of silver-winged race members who had followed Skypiercer and protected them were also beheaded. The sky was filled with stars and the bright moon was bright and clear. This mountain forest was deathly silent. All the birds and beasts were trembling and lying dormant. Even the mosquitoes didn't dare to make any noise. Chu Feng stood under the waterfall. He washed his body and changed into clean clothes. He carried his long blade on his back and turned to leave. He had rushed over tens of thousands of kilometers and destroyed Skypiercer's branch on Earth. It didn't take him a long time. In the end, he drove the green bamboo boat into the eastern night sky and charged straight into the sea. When Chu Feng returned, the auction was still in progress and hadn't ended. Moreover, climaxes were rising one after another. Some rare treasures, as well as those saint children and saintesses, were being auctioned off in full swing. "Brother Chu, where did you go just now?" asked the Origin Demon Race's Crown Prince Yuan Shirqing. He had an odd expression because with his powerful divine instincts, he was sure that Chu Feng had left just now and wasn't on the ship. "My blood energy isn't flowing smoothly, so I went to move my muscles and bones," replied Chu Feng. At this time, the black yak, yellow cattle, and the old donkey all saw Chu Feng. Seeing him return calmly, they immediately understood that things had gone smoothly and the curtains had already fallen. They revealed expressions of joy and were completely relieved. "Chu Feng, you've let us down. Why did you sneak attack us and rob us at Mount Kunlun?" At this time, Yuan was making a punitive expedition, but her large eyes were somewhat charming. The vermilion bird fairy was also standing beside her. Her red battle clothes flickered with flickering flames as she stared intently at Chu Feng. Chu Feng stood on the deck with a wine cup in his hand and gestured to them. Then, with a sincere and serious attitude, he explained that he had mistaken them for someone else and thought they were related to the deity race. In the end, because he wasn't sure of their identities, he only robbed them and didn't kill them. Yuan cast a sidelong glance at him. How could she believe such nonsense? However, she didn't want to fall out with him. Originally, she wanted to rope in Chu Feng, but now she was just using this as a pretext to talk and find an entry point. The origin demon race wanted to rope in the dragon Chu Feng. The silver-haired Lolita Ing Xiaoxiao appeared and disappeared unpredictably. She ran over to undermine him and said, "Big liar, then why did you knock my sister unconscious? Could it be that she also looks like someone from the deity race? Can't you see that we have a head of silver hair? I thought you were from the Shilin race. That race's hair color is very mixed." Chu Feng replied without a blush or a jump in his heart. Ing Zhixian and Ing Wudi, who were walking over, were speechless when they heard this. He really opened his mouth. The auction was in progress. As time passed, it became late at night. 4 hours had passed, and the Sky Piercer organization in the universe couldn't remain calm. That was because they were mobilizing their troops that night. They wanted to send their most experienced trump card hunters to the Milky Way and enter Earth to kill Chu Feng. However, when they contacted the Earth branch to understand the situation, there was no movement. That place was deathly silent and no one responded. After that, they contacted the peripheral members, but in the end, there was no response from the silver-winged race. They had lost contact with the Earth branch. This was definitely a major incident. Their hearts sank at that time. The people they had sent to Earth had actually all lost contact. It was truly comical and laughable. In the end, they could only contact the interstellar explorers and spend a large sum of money to buy information from these organizations so that they could search. There were many organizations among the interstellar explorers, and naturally, some of their members were on Earth. These people would occasionally have business dealings with the Skypiercer, but now they directly accepted the order. That was because this kind of mission was too easy. They only needed to rush to the destination and take a look. That night, a piece of shocking news spread through the starry skies at an explosive speed. Many orthodoxies were shocked and flabbergasted. The interstellar explorers usually explored, excavated treasures, and also helped people search for information. All of this was paid, and the buyer wasn't the only one. They had no obligation to keep it a secret. When they rushed to the depths of Mount Wangu, they immediately smelled the pungent smell of blood. After that, they saw corpses all over the ground, as well as many human-shaped ashes. The remnants of the battle clothes had the Skypiercer's insignia on their sleeves. They realized that this was the Dark Hunter's old lair, their branch on Earth. These people were all dead. When they told this news to the Skypiercer, the higher-ups of this colossus in the darkness were furious. At the same time, some other orthodoxies also received the news, causing a monstrous uproar. Heavens, who did this? The Dark Hunters were hunted down and completely annihilated. Not a single one was able to escape. It was a huge earthquake. The news spread through the starry skies. Not long ago, didn't they announce on the official platform that they were going to start hunting Chu Feng? In the end, something happened to them first. This happened on Earth? It can't be. Some people's eyes flickered as they made a startling association. Very soon, many bidders at the Eastern Sea auction house also received the news. They were all stupefied. Many people got up and whispered to each other as they discussed spiritedly. Chu Feng, you couldn't have done this, could you? At this moment, even Ing Wudi wore a shocked expression as he looked at Great Demon Chu opposite him. Chu Feng swirled his red wine and calmly walked onto the high platform. He said to everyone, "I'm holding a press conference at the last minute. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."